_POV Ashton_. It only took me around a week to decipher the writing on that altar. And, apparently, there are two different texts. I didn't notice this when I got my hands on it, but it was a dark place, and the second writing is much smaller. I had to use a magnifying glass to read it. And, I won't lie, the contents of these texts are really concerning. Although it's within the boundaries of what I had expected. The beasts are born of crime. Demons from an ancient time. Rose from the bodies of the greater gods. The fools. They tried to capture them. To study them and to recreate them. Their sins are pronounced. The gods were displeased. An entire race doomed at the hands of a few. The gateway was forced open. The abominations were woken. Will this also be the end of us, the faithful? This time, the text was full. It also had two sides. This is the first one. It's quite clear that the fools are humans in this case. They created some of the abominations that litter the continent. But it seems that not all of them were created by the hands of humans. And it also seems that these greater gods have failed in killing off the human race. Twice. The altar is quite clearly from a much older civilization than that labyrinth city. They needed to be evolved enough to be able to mutate the beasts in the first place. It means that the first appearance of these beasts was in the first civilization of humans. And they studied the beasts and tried to combine them in many ways. They angered the greater gods and were almost wiped out. It seems quite a few survived and rebuilt their society. Slowly and from scratch. Either that or they re-evolved into humans from another species of apes over the course of a few 100,000 years. Regardless, the second era of humans was also ended by the beasts, quite obviously sent by the greater gods to take care of their unfinished business. And, people from that civilization, are likely the ones that escaped to Lake Mobius and re-established themselves there. There is nothing written in any text on Lake Mobius, but I think this is the most logical conclusion. That's our current era. I don't really know when I was born, but the civilization should have been at a high medieval stage. I washed up to these shores by pure luck. I still find it hard to understand. Anyway, it seems that these gods didn't realize that humans were still alive, but the expeditions caught their attention. At least I think so. So they decided to stir up the beasts they created once more. To kill them off once more. But, for some reason, they can't really leave this continent. Neither the gods can influence Lake Mobius. It seems only the calamities can enter the human world. From this text, I also learned that these greater gods can interact with the world through this gateway. There's also the strange tone this tablet has. Were the writers part of the faithful? Were they worshippers of these gods? Something that makes the second side of the altar all the more suspicious. And, well, it was also a bit more interesting. Sleeping in the depths. Underneath 1,000 steps. An unspeakable horror, of flesh and bone. It will come alive, to face the older ones. You must awaken it. It is your duty. Face the sunken temple's gates of unparalleled horror and beauty. It basically wants to send the reader on a quest to free something capable of going against these greater gods. Something about it feels quite strange though. The sunken temple underneath 1,000 steps. I think I know what this text is referring to. But I simply can't put my finger on it, my memory is really foggy. It's probably one of my earliest memories. They tend to get really foggy and they are rarely detailed. I just faintly remember a strange whirlpool. It was massive, larger than an island. The inside looked dark and foreboding. Swirling endlessly and swallowing anything that passed by. One of those things happened to be the ship I was on as a child. But my recollection always ends there. As if something is blocking it. I need to figure that part out too. Maybe looking for that place would be helpful. But at a later time. Still, they don't describe this thing like you would a hero. It's as if they are unleashing an abomination to fight a tyrant. Like fighting evil with evil. I guess things are not really as black and white in this situation. I need to tread carefully. But this altar feels shady. It almost felt as if the people that wrote the first one warned against the gods. But the one that wrote on this altar seems to revere them. The second part of the altar writing is really shady to me. But maybe I'm getting the wrong message from it. I have gotten a lot of information from these altars. But I still can't help this feeling that I don't know enough. That I'm not seeing the full picture. Well, I will figure it out eventually. I also decrypted the book that came with that crown relic. It just held information about the relic. Much like the blessing of the greater gods, which makes me think they are somewhat related. It's called the sacrificial crown. It can completely enslave the one wearing it to the owner of the relic. It seems that waking up this strange abomination that can fight the old ones isn't as simple as going to its house and beating on the front door. The person doing the work needs to perform a type of ritual. It is needlessly complicated and requires the blood of one pure maiden wearing the sacrificial crown. Well, I will see where this search takes me. This crown is quite useless for now, but I'll keep it nonetheless. That was all I had found in my research. I will have to go and visit the next calamity to see if I can find out more. Well, I learned a lot this time. It was a profitable trip, although the fight with Brian could have gone better. I didn't even look into the seed, mainly because I don't want to take it out in the wilderness. I will research it when I reach my laboratory. But, for now, my next target is the swamps on the far southeast shore of Lake Mobius, the home of the Hellbells. Comment. I already know of their fighting strength, but their numbers will likely pose a problem to me. Also, that mind-altering power will be annoying to deal with. But I will figure something out. _POV Ashton_. The journey to the swamps will take me at least 2 months. That is without any stops and with no need to rest. That's also not taking into account any distractions or events that might happen on my way there. So the real journey might take a few weeks more. I also have to circle back around where I came from. Otherwise, the journey would take at least 5 months. And I am also moving at a pretty slow pace. I can't really hurry lest I want to attract another stupid swarm of beasts. I've already been flying for a month, with short stops to rest and to do some light reading on the Compendium of the Wild Hunt. It seems that Brian has been listed as a parasitic entity, so my gut instinct was right in not letting it touch anything at all. Its methods of possession aren't really known at all, but the book called the seed indestructible, so I guess I'll have to hold on to it for quite a while. I have already passed by the mountain in which I took out the paps. I really don't know what became of them, but I don't really feel like finding out. I already grabbed a specimen of their species. I doubt that was every single one of them dead though. The mountain should still have quite a few left. This would explain why there are no other life forms still on the mountain. It was just as barren as I remembered it. But I now know that the paps are likely still present there. There was also the nest of the rock. I passed by it since I didn't wish to take an unexplored route for no reason. It seems the mindless legendary beast didn't win that battle. But that was to be expected. No matter how strong it looked to be, how much it dominated the fight in the beginning, it still went down to the legion of beasts. Numbers are sometimes better than pure strength. Well, only if the numbers also have a certain level of strength. 1,000,000 ants would still get shredded to pieces against a rock, but 1,000,000 blood vultures would likely peck its flesh away in minutes. All I could see was its picked-apart skeleton, a hole in its skull the size of a great tree. The fight was definitely not a short one though. The forest is unrecognizable, the trees in the ground are all ruined beyond any recognition. It's quite clear that this rock was completely overwhelmed once it had tired itself out. I just continued my journey, not staying there for too long. And, I eventually reached the point I am at right now. In front of a broken-down camp, following traces of blood out of sheer curiosity. I mean, it's not like I didn't warn Curly of how fucked this expedition was going to be, so their deaths are not on me in any capacity. Well, assuming they died anyway. Beyond seemed to be strong enough to survive. So did Marion and Golem, but I can't be too sure, it depends on what they actually ran into. I followed the traces of blood all the way to a large cave entrance. I think I can guess what has happened here. This cave looks exactly like the nest of a certain powerful predator called the Bloodseeker. I think it's grabbed the members of the expedition to keep for an evening meal or something. I guess I can pay them a visit. I still have a long way to go until I reach my objective. I wonder how many of them are still alive? I mean, the Bloodseeker is the weakest possible predator of this level, so I guess they do have some chances of surviving. If the Bloodseeker ran into a swarm of beasts it would probably die in seconds. But I guess that's a bit of an unfair matchup. This spider does have decent attack power, but it barely has any defenses. It's simply not built to take hits. I can actually take care of this spider without even using much Nen. So I guess I'll just enter this place without worrying too much. The entrance was covered in a blood-red silky spider web. Now, this spider web would be annoying to break without using Nen. But I can always just enter through the small holes to the side. The entrance of this cave is around 50 meters 164 feet tall and 40 meters 131 feet wide. It's not exactly a small beast per se, but it's also not really a massive one. I entered the cave through a gap in between the web and the wall of about half a meter 1.6 feet. Then I started going in with minimal effort, using Gyo minimally just to see properly. There weren't any web traps along the way, but that's to be expected. The Bloodseeker wasn't really known as a cunning beast even when it was intelligent. Now it's even less so. It's probably even gone to sleep after securing some of its food. The food should be from the expedition team. At least I think it's them unless there was another group of humans randomly camping near here. I made my way through the long caverns. I eventually reached a large open area. I could see the spider in the middle. It's a large spider with a soft red exoskeleton and a scorpion tail. It also has 10 slender legs that are covered in the same soft exoskeleton. Its poison can be annoying, but it's just the type that causes hallucinations. It seemed to be sleeping like I expected it to be. It's just in a sitting position with all of its eyes closed. But it seems that the members of the expedition team are here. 2 of them even managed to skillfully break out of their web bindings. I could see Jing and Marion silently struggling to break out more of their teammates. But they weren't really making much progress. They also haven't noticed me at all. I guess they are extremely focused on not making any sound. Look at them be all crouched up and waiting for an opportunity to rip apart the webbing of their teammates. I slowly walked up behind them and looked at them for a bit. They didn't look all that uninjured. I guess they did try to fight it at first. There were also others awake. Well, the only people that were asleep were Curly and that sushi chef. They likely didn't manage to resist the effects of the hallucinogenic poison. "What are you guys up to?" I said in a loud voice, making everyone that wasn't under the effect of the hallucinations jump in fear. Or wiggle around, I guess. Jing slowly turned around with wide eyes. I just blinked a bit and stared at them. They were all giving me an angry look, while looking at the spider in fear. It was still sleeping, by the way. The Bloodseeker doesn't have the ability to hear or feel the sound waves that humans release. "The spider's deaf," I said in an even tone, keeping a normal smile on my face. If Curly was awake he'd be able to tell them the same. But it seems that he's focused more on his academic studies than on his Nen and poison resistance. Then I could see Jing and Beyond sigh in relief. Marion still looked at me with some anger, but I guess it's more for me sneaking up on her. I shrugged a bit and asked again. "Sue, you guys need any help?" Looking at them struggle might be fun, but some of them are still people I get along with. _POV narration _ The expedition team was not having a great time. Granted, they didn't expect to be having much fun, and they were warned a few times about what they would find in this place. Curly specifically, who had talked with Ashton about the dangers they might encounter in this place every night. He didn't even understand how everything happened so quickly. They had just set up their camp, a perimeter of traps and a simple alarm system around it. They also let 2 people on guard. They would rotate throughout the night so that everyone would be at least somewhat rested in the morning. Their stay on the continent was quite uneventful. They just ran in a few powerful beasts, but nothing they couldn't handle. But it seems they had made their camp near the nest of an actual monster. It had taken them by surprise and had webbed up most of them before they could even react. The alarms they set up didn't do anything at all. Any defense was useless. The ones on guard duty at that time were Golem the Mecha, and Masker the Fatty with an egg head. They had died instantly. Masker being eaten alive on the spot and Golem being crushed under one of the spider's massive legs. The commotion had woken up the rest, but the spider was already on to them. They had no way of actually fleeing. They were all captured, encased in a blood-red spider web as soon as they came out of their tents. They were then dragged off to the cave, including Golem's corpse and Scrap, and were stuck to a wall of the cave using the same silky web. Slowly, Marion broke out of her bindings and Jing followed soon after. They were about to help Netero break out of his when they were interrupted by Ashton. His sudden appearance startled them quite a lot. None of them had even sensed his presence at all. It was almost difficult to tell he was there even when looking at him. It was an unnatural level of stealth. His complete disregard for the monster that could easily kill them all was also a bit strange. It gave beyond an odd feeling. He could still remember Ashton telling the Zodiacs about how weak they were. Now, he could see him in action too. An uncaring face in front of danger is somewhat impressive to hold. But it isn't as impressive when you aren't even faced with any danger in the first place. Somehow, Beyond deemed Ashton to be a complete monster in his mind, one more frightening than the beast that captured them. So he wasn't all that impressed by anything Ashton did. He was already expecting Ashton to be enigmatic after all. The same can't be said about the other members. They just found his uncaring nature to be quite preposterous. After all, the beast had taken out one of their strongest in a few seconds. Marion even flared up her end a bit. A mistake she quickly realized, but it was already too late. She was about to apologize, but something else happened. They were about to see why Ashton was so uncaring. As Netero let off a few muffled shouts and wiggled around, he attracted everyone's attention towards the spider. The monster stirred awake and rose up to its full height. Its large hairy legs were bent and it was already touching the top of the cave with its back. Jing quickly turned to Ashton. "Ashton, quickly, use your wind Hatsu and get us away from this place." He waved his hand in a panicked wave. He would usually be calm, but he believed this circumstance to be quite dire. Still, Beyond had calmed down after seeing Ashton slowly turn around and face the beast with a smile. _POV Ashton_. Why should I bother? This thing's really pathetic. It's a bit odd to see this group get ruined by one of the weakest powerful predators. They are this discouraged, but I'm pretty sure they would have been able to kill it themselves if it didn't jump them in their camp. This thing is fast, but it has almost no protection. If it attacked a group like Maha and his family, it would be as good as dead. Even if it ambushed them. This isn't the time for boasting. Hearing Marion shout is really unusual. But I guess her cold face falls in the face of death? You guys just don't get it. I shook my head and looked at all of them. They were scrambling to free themselves. Well, all but one person. Beyond just stared at me calmly. He probably realizes I won't let them die since I've bothered to show myself in front of them. Like father, like son. I always have to clean up after one of them. I tried to keep an angry face, but a smile still escaped through my blockade. I put the least amount of Nen I could in the Wind Strider boots. I was sent flying. I twirled around in the air and landed on the top of the cave. I then quickly started using the relic in bursts, sending myself flying around the room in short bursts. Since this is an enclosed space, I don't even need to bother using any Hatsu to fight this beast. It's not really smart, so it's made its home in a really impractical location. This cave is clearly not big enough for it to live comfortably. The beast tried its best to follow my movement, shooting webs around wherever I landed, but it was slow. By the time the web reached my landing spot, I am already flying towards another. It can't make much use of its legs in such a small cave. At least not defensively. I could also easily land on a place with webbing, as the relic blew it apart without any resistance. After gaining enough momentum, I jumped towards its head, rolling in the air and extending my leg towards it. To give it credit, it reacted quickly, using its front legs to try to block my attack. But they broke almost instantly. Then soon followed its head, as the legs didn't really slow me down all that much. The only parts of its body are its mouth and the tips of its legs. It didn't even get to use them at all in this fight. Its head was crushed under my leg. My momentum also brought it to the ground in a violent manner, crushing it into the ground and cracking the floor of the cave around this part of the cave. Well, that's that. It wasn't that hard. So, are you guys going to free yourselves, or am I supposed to do that for you too? I said in a bit of an irritated tone. They quickly used their nen and freed themselves of their bindings. I now realize that 2 of them are missing. But I can't really do much about that, can I? Oh well, good thing I didn't get all that attached to any of them. Well, except Beyond and Curly, but it's not all that much. How did you do that? Asked Jing. He likely realized I barely used any nen to pull off that attack assault. Well, I just kicked it. I obviously won't bother explaining all of that stuff to him though. It's not that I hate him or something. I just don't care enough about him to waste my breath. Though, I guess he was asking for everybody else. They all seemed quite curious, besides Beyond. He just looked surprised for a second or two, then just shook his head. Well then, let us speak more while sitting down, shall we? I said as I started walking towards the entrance. Wouldn't this place be safe though? I mean, this thing is pretty dead. The sushi chef is really showing his ignorance of how the beasts here work. Good thing Curly is here to explain stuff to him. The second the beasts outside the territory realize the beast is dead, they will likely swarm this place. We need to hurry away right now. Well, we still have time to head to the camp if you guys have anything to grab, I said, turning around and walking backwards for a bit. Let's not waste any more time though! I said with a smile as I turned back around. A really nice and roundabout way of telling them to hurry the fuck up. _POV Ashton_. So, what exactly have you guys been up to? I said as I lead the way away from the territory of the spider. They had decided to make a stop by their camp to grab their supplies and what tents they found still intact. I spent the time looking at my watch and whistling around the camp. Most of the members of this team aren't really all that accustomed to me yet. Most of the supporting members barely even know my name. Well, not for a lack of me trying. I did try talking to most of them, but I think their opinion of me fell quite a bit after we parted ways. Nothing I care a lot about it. They likely think I should have stuck with them for longer, or that no one would have died if I was also present. But that's just foolish. If I did stay around them, I'd no doubt attract a forest full of beasts in this location. After all, I can take care of myself using Nen minimally, but I can't do that when with more people. My adventures with Netero, Zig and Lin are quite a good example of that. I always ended up having to use more Nen and attracting too much attention from the forests, which often lead to us having to run as quickly as we could. Although, the ways our personalities clashed often brought more trouble than the beasts themselves. I remember Zig cutting Netero's beard while the latter was sleeping. That ended in a brawl. It took me and Lin both to separate the two idiots. Why Netero was so mad? Zig had done that using Yama's nail one-hit kill relic. Well, there were quite a few moments like that. Zig wasn't the only one with a lukewarm IQ in that group. Netero himself was a master chef of idiocy. He could cook up the stupidest of plots, the type that wouldn't even cross my mind, in a matter of seconds. Like that time when he tried to plug up an erupting volcano using a large ball of the 1000 beads mala. Why he did that? Well, and I will quote him here. I wanted to see if it would explode or not. Well, it did. And we had to flee for our lives once more, He was truly the smartest of scientists. His experiments were always fruitful and beneficial. Sarcasm. Lin herself had her moments of brilliance, like the aforementioned egg hunt where we all tried to steal the eggs of a legendary beast and had to run for our lives for days. The legendary beast was a phoenix, one that's instinctually very protective of its young. In retrospect, I could have also advised against this plan, but I also kinda wanted to taste them. I mean, the omelet was damn fine, but it wasn't really worth the risk of death and all the running. Well, enough about that. I've been walking with the expedition team for a few hours now. They are still quite on edge from their encounter with a powerful predator. I can't really blame them, it's probably the strongest beast they've seen till now. Well, maybe Beyond has seemed stronger in his last expedition. But he doesn't count. Marion is still giving me strange gazes from time to time, sometimes staring at me for a bit too long. I would guess she's curious about my strength too, especially since she seems to be the type to take those things seriously. But I didn't really talk much to her, and I don't really plan to. I just told Curly to avoid any strange ruin they might come across. He didn't want to at first, but he accepted to speak to Beyond about it after I told him about the misty biome. It's a place that's constantly moving, calling it a biome is a bit much. But it's something I had initially forgotten about. It's basically an area where strange structures might appear. They are most of the time false illusions made by a strange type of flower that slowly moves underground. It captures the victims in its illusions and sucks away their life force using its vines. I didn't really run into it directly 'cause I fly high, but I did see it from a distance. I feel it would be good to tell them about it too. Still, that fight with the spider was a lot easier than I anticipated. I had forgotten how feeble the exoskeleton of the Bloodseeker actually is. But I guess the environment didn't really help it either. It was a bit boring. The only entertaining thing there was the reaction of the group. But that quickly bored me too. I'm already going to take my leave soon, so I guess I'll just announce Curly and Beyond or something like that. Well, announcing Beyond might be a bit more fitting, seeing as he's supposedly the leader of the expedition. I just walked towards the bearded man and patted him on the shoulder. Beyond, I'll be on my way soon. He just looked at me for a bit then nodded. Thank you for all the help then. It's been a pleasure traveling with you, he said with a smile and a tired sigh. I guess they haven't really rested properly yet, with the spider attacking them and all. He seems like a good guy. We'd probably become friends if not for that strange tone of formality in his voice. I guess he can't help but be polite. I am his senior by many years and he knows it too. That and me being friends with his dad. Maybe that's why he can't truly be relaxed around me. Oh well, I won't be sticking around with him for long. I also can't really assist him in any way. If I made a Nen beast and gave it to him I would likely just kill him. The entire group would be swarmed in minutes. And they can't even win against a Bloodseeker, their chances against a horde aren't really shining that brightly. I waved at the group. Take care, shouted Curly. I just smiled. Good luck to you guys. I then flew off using my relic. I took off into the clouds before slowly flying away. I still have quite a long way to travel after all. This is hopefully going to be quite an eventful _POV Ashton_. My travels took me on faraway paths. But they weren't unfamiliar to me. I've walked these plains before, alongside my friends. Now, I fly alone, but I am still not there yet. I have quite a lot to go, so why have I stopped? I am almost a week away from the swamps of the Hellbells. But they have suddenly taken second place in my mind for a few minutes. Why is that? Well, I'm soon going to pass by my old home. A place that I lived in for the longest of times. That cave is going to serve as my stop for now. I need to look for something inside that place. It's just a thought that keeps nagging me. And, since I am quite close right now, why not visit the place? What exactly could go wrong? Well, a bad omen would be the earth shaking underneath me right now. I stand in front of where my cave formerly was, now an empty mountainside. Something just isn't right about this. I am sure this is the exact place where my home was supposed to be. I doubt I'd make such mistakes so easily. The surface looks too clean for this to be a cave-in. The only possible explanation would be that a cave-in happened, then it was compressed by a few earthquakes. But even then, it wouldn't look this perfect. Well, there's only one way to find out what happened, isn't there? I took a horse stance and prepared my fist for a punch, strengthening them through the gauntlets of Nath. My punch landed with a powerful bang. The wall in front of me was instantly filled with cracks as a good part of the mountain trembled. The earth in front of me seemed to be breaking apart, revealing a cave behind it. The only problem here: it isn't supposed to be this large. The air in this cave was strangely fresh too, which means there must be some other exit somewhere else. It seemed to go a lot deeper than I remember it. It seems something else claimed this as its home while I was away. I might also have a hunch as to what exactly it is. I walked deeper down the cave system, which leads me to simplistic-looking nest. Just a raised rock platform in the middle of a large open space. And sleeping on that nest, and nothing other than an earth creature. A strange, worm-like entity. Its skin is covered in thick scales and its mouth opens up like a flower. Inside the mouth, one can observe the upper body of a human-like woman. She is usually featureless, only shape similar to that of a human female. Information on this species is extremely scarce, and this is the first time I've actually seen one in person. It's said to be able to control the dirt and rocks, digging through them with ease. The compendium describes them as an abomination created by an amalgamation of post-mortem nen, fueled by a powerful desire to survive. Which makes this entity more of a nen beast turned alive than an actual being. Wait. A living being created out of nen. One that even the compendium recognizes as a true life form. And this beast is most likely created by humans. Isn't then this basically what the greater gods did? What exactly is their identity then? If humans also have the capability to create life in this manner, then how exactly are these gods special? I mean, don't get me wrong. Humans are perfectly capable of scientifically engineering and modifying life, but this is basically creating life from nothing using only aura. How exactly do I know this is made by humans? The only beings with willpower strong enough to translate to post-mortem nen are, you guessed it, humans. And, maybe, chimera ants, but that's debatable. I've not actually seen one yet. They are also a new species, so they don't count in these calculations. This is a species that has appeared at least near the end of the second human era, the last one that was on this continent. So their will to live transmitted into a powerful post-mortem nen, fermented over the centuries and turned into a new form of life. A truly fascinating beast. But there's something else that is interesting here. The mouth of this creature seems to already be opened up. It's usually supposed to be protecting its soft spot, but this one is just blatantly showing it off in its sleep. The woman-like figure inside that mouth is leaned over on the side, appearing to be peacefully asleep. In her hands, is what I've come here for. A small, plush doll. It's a simple, almost primitive design. Yellow hair, small dotted dress. Its eyes are long since lost. And one of its hands is missing. A doll that I had as a child. I had left it here that fateful day when I left for Lake Mobius, and it's now in this beast's hands. I'm quite sure it's not even my doll, but it must be one of the last things I had grabbed onto as a child while the ship was being swallowed up by that whirlpool. So, why have I returned for it? Well, I have some strange foggy memories about it. Sometimes I felt as if it was speaking to me. It's an odd feeling. It was seemingly possessed. Well, I didn't notice it at first. But that wasn't the only thing strange about it. The memories are far too messy for me to properly recall. But it would sometimes move around by itself. Not large movements, mind you, but small, almost unnoticeable ones. I didn't expressly come back due to nostalgia. But I just had an inkling that this doll might also be more important to this mystery I am trying to solve. I mean, it's literally the only item I had on me besides the clothes on my back at that time. It definitely has something to it. But, now that I see it, I just get a strange feeling of dread. It's not even from the strange beast holding it, its aged appearance is starting me dead in the eye. A reminder of the fact that I should definitely be dead. Time is a slow and insidious killer, and I have dodged its attempts for centuries more than a human should. Is my longevity really only related to the treasures that I ate? So many things that I thought I knew, turns out I actually didn't find a conclusive answer for. I just enclosed myself in an illusion that I had everything figured out. That I somehow knew what I was doing and that I was correct. The beast isn't showing any sign of waking up. You'd think that the sound of my fist smashing through that wall would have woken up anything nearby, but this thing looks almost dead. Upon closer inspection, there seems to be no sign of movement whatsoever. I don't know if this thing is supposed to be breathing or not. But it certainly isn't now. The Earth's creature is supposed to be a species with less than 10 living examples. Is this one truly dead? _POV Ashton_. I slowly walked towards the worm. The only question on my mind being, is this truly dead? On my way towards it, I started removing all of my relics and putting them in my void space, preparing for the worst. I reached the mouth of the beast and stared at the doll for a few seconds. My previous question was answered in the form of a strange growling sound from the mouth of the worm. Its teeth quickly tried to close themselves around me. I let it bite off my arm and just backed away a bit, looking at the stump of my arm. I could have dodged that, but that would have made this fight much more difficult. Parasitic Explosion is a strange Hatsu. It's one of the few I can use discreetly as long as it is already within something. And, my body is always infected with it. I just stared at the worm as it swallowed my arm. I waited a bit, as to not blow up its mouth, and then detonated the hand as the beast was starting to manipulate the earth around me. It rose a spike from underneath me. I simply stepped to the side and stared at the beast as its body was quickly expanding due to the explosion inside it. But, it didn't burst. The beast let off a powerful roar along with a lot of smoke and just directed its teeth at me once more. At least the roar pushed the doll out of its mouth. So I don't need to worry about that for now. I guess it won't be this easy, huh? I guess that's to be expected. I extended an arm to the side and let a clone grow out of me, transferring my consciousness to it just as the worm took my body in its mouth. Cell Splitter does have that condition, that the clone will be in the same state as the user was when it was made. But that can be circumvented. I did so in the fight with Brian, but when I'm gravely injured I can create a healthy clone using some vitality. So I did just that. The clone had a healthy arm. I stared as the worm crushed my previous body into the cave wall, its teeth digging into the wall of the cave as the body of the clone dissolved in its mouth. The blob of dissolving flesh exploded, engulfing the head of the Earth's creature in flame and smoke. The worm recoiled, smashing its head on the ceiling of the cave as the walls shook violently. The earth around me quickly started moving, tendrils threatening to crush my bones and kill me. I immediately used nature resonance and wrestled its control over the walls of the cave. I managed to stop the spikes just as they were about to reach me. The monster unleashed an irritating wail, almost like that of a woman. But it wasn't as pronounced, it felt out of this world. Since I already used Nen, I guess I can just go all out now. Using wind aspect, I pulled onto the air around me and created a tornado that tore and shred through every single corner of the cave. The worm tried to run around, but its body was far too large to avoid the blades of wind. It was quickly filled with scars as its blood flowed, soaking the ground of the cave and forming puddles all over the room. It slowly collapsed as the tornado in the room died down. I used the air around it to manipulate its weakened body and force its mouth open. I could see the figure of the woman inside that mouth. She seemed to be trembling in fear. It was a strange thing. Wait. Is this being even my enemy? Would these greater gods even have any influence over this being? Something created by humans? Which means that this being is also not mad. Well, it was created out of a human, so you can never know. But it should be intelligent enough. I stared at it for a while, before deciding to take out Quidliqua's blessing, the ring I had previously used to heal Mama's neck. I enveloped the worm in my aura and started slowly closing up its wounds. I could hear some confused growls coming from it. But they quickly turned in strange purrs as the warmth of the aura spread around its large body. I never thought I'd hear a worm purr in my life, but here I am. It's currently beating its tail into the ground as my aura heals it. I, unfortunately, don't have any time to heal it completely. The swarm is soon to be on its way to this place. But, I can at least put this worm into my void space and heal it later. I guess I'll try to make it enter by itself first. I ripped the space open large enough for the worm to enter and took out my relics too. Enter. I tried speaking the language of old. It's quite unrefined and I'm sure my accent is all wrong. But the message got across. As the beast slid itself into my void space with little protest. Just as it entered, I could feel the mountain range shake violently. I went and picked up the doll, putting it in my void storage too. This is no normal swarm. Something big is coming my way. I think I know just who it is too. It's been a while since I've met my teacher. I walked out through a different tunnel. In the distance was a beast of ridiculous proportions. It was far away, yet it seemed larger than the mountain range I was currently on. It had 6 legs, its torso was strangely attached to the middle of it. Similar to a spider, yet not quite. The legs themselves weren't the same, one was the claw of a reptile, one the hoof of a goat. Each leg belonged to a different animal. But I somehow think this being is where they actually originated from, not the other way around. It only had 4 hands. 2 of them seemed to have the head of a snake on them but without eyes. Just dangerous mouths with sharp teeth, similar more to those of a shark. The other hands were more human-like in nature. Still covered in the same dark scales and spikes as the rest of its body is. It had 12 eyes on top of a large head, shaped similarly to that of a human, but had no holes for ears and nose. Its mouth was also human-like, only showing a cold expression. Every step of the beast broke the ground and shook this side of the continent. This abomination is my teacher. The compendium has quite a few titles for my teacher. Also no conclusive name for the species. But the title that comes to mind most often right now. One that just recently started making more sense. The Guardian of the Sunken Temple _POV Ashton_. Now, when faced with such an opponent the most intelligent decision would be to run the fuck away. But I do wish to check how he's been doing the past few years. So, I'll just send a present his way before I run somewhere else. After all, my teacher, with all of his power, simply cannot overcome the slow movement speed of his. He did used to have a few methods of manipulating Nen that allowed him to move faster, but they are all lost now that he's a mindless beast too. If he was still intelligent, I wouldn't have much of a chance to escape him at all. Well, if he wished me to die that is. My teacher used to be a pacifist. He would much faster consume dirt than kill off some other animals in the forests to feed himself. He didn't even need food to survive anyway. He would only indulge in fruits from time to time. Now, any semblance of his older convictions is lost to the wind. There's nothing left of him inside that thing. I can even see the traces of blood on his legs, which are obviously not his. Not even a legendary beast would be able to overcome his defenses to such an extent as to draw blood from him, even if he was to be in a frenzied state. If I am to compare my current Nen reserves to it, then it would be like comparing a small campfire to a festival bonfire. In the past, I was like a torch. Most humans don't even reach the level of a match. So I guess I am still quite good. At least by comparison. Still, it's a bit of a shame that he isn't even able to use much of his power now. Now, it's certainly been a while since I've seen him in full size. It would take me around 3 hours to reach him, but he's also headed my way. So I can always just choose to wait for a bit. I climbed up the top of the mountain with a few bursts of wind and stared at him at almost eye level. Although he's still quite far away, he will be towering over me when he gets closer. I sat down on the rocks and stared at the approaching king of the Dark Continent. I wonder what type of gift should I even leave him. I have a few ideas, but I guess I can just blow off one of his hands for now. Now, the only Hatsu I have capable of doing that is parasitic explosion. It needs to be internal. Even then, it will be difficult to blow it cleanly off, but at least dealing some damage is possible. The king of Ents was lucky he had that strange devouring Hatsu, or maybe it was an inborn ability? It allowed him to completely ignore my strongest Hatsu. My teacher doesn't have any of that. He can't counter it at all in his current state. In the past, he would just strengthen himself a bit and shrug it off without issue. Now, he will likely just start swinging his arms around in anger. Although, approaching him and dodging around will be quite a bit of fun. Well, there's the other problem. While my teacher will get here slowly, the other beasts around have already started making their way up the mountain. They are like a swarm of ants crawling around everywhere. It's a bit irritating. I'd blow them all away if it didn't take so much aura out of me. And if I didn't have chances of dying while doing so. Some beasts were already reaching the top, the larger ones were trying to jump towards me. I just flew off into the clouds and ignored them completely, still fixated on my approaching teacher. Then, I could hear a distinct flapping of wings. Then a huge tornado sweeping me into it from midair. I was forced to use wind aspect to separate myself from it. As I looked around, I could see another predator staring me down. It seems I've encountered yet another rock. This time, not asleep, and certainly not friendly at all. Well, wresting control over the winds from it will be extremely difficult. So I am better off just fleeing. Or, I could just kill it. It won't be all that difficult, if only it was alone. A large army of all manners of flying abominations seemed to pour out from inside the clouds. I was forced to fly straight towards my teacher. I'll meet him halfway, give him the present, and flee. Little problem, the rock didn't seem to want me to use the Wind Strider boots. Every time I release a burst from them, the propulsion is weaker than usual. The rock seems to want to pull me towards it. I let myself be pulled towards it, and just as the swarm was closing in on me and the wings of the rock were about to envelop me, I released a powerful explosion, sending me flying towards my destination and temporarily stunning most of my close air pursuers. The rock was sent hurtling towards the ground. It will get back up, but I have a window of opportunity to gain some distance from them all. I once again let off mines behind me, and kept flying forwards towards my destination. My teacher was already close, his head was well above the clouds. I flew up at him and stared him in the eye. This time more closely. I don't know what I was expecting, but there truly isn't any intelligence in them. Oh well, better dodge that swipe of his. He swiped at me with one of his snake hands, his strike parting all of the clouds and killing off many of my air pursuers. The hand used was one of the human ones, which were placed above the snake ones. I decided to blow one of them up. The snake ones were more flexible in nature and would be more annoying to reach. They'd likely just coil around me anyway, but it's worth a shot. I quickly created a clone and sent it flying towards the head of the Titan. It spun around in the air and prepared a drop kick on one of the eyes. Right before it was gobbled up by one of the snake hands. Meanwhile, I dashed towards the one side of the body that was more occupied, the one eating the clone, and landed on the shoulder. I spread my anacondometer around his arm. I barely covered the upper part of his human arm. I then immediately jumped away, as the snake hand was already onto me. I flew away a bit before I was out of its reach. Then I detonated the arm. My teacher's right shoulder was immediately engulfed in flames. The explosion tore through his defenses from inside out. The explosion was the size of a nuclear one, but there was no radiation to be had. I could see his hand still dangling on the side of his body. Meanwhile, I'm still running away from his snake hand and staring at it. I guess I didn't manage to blow it off properly, but it's only hanging on to a few strands of muscle and scale. Although, it was already healing by the time I looked away. Oh well, I made my point. The way my teacher is now is quite disgraceful to his previous strength. I can even play around with him to this extent. After that, I quickly sped off in the opposite direction. After a few thousand kilometers of flying with explosions, I started using my boots. It's time to lose my pursuers now. After that, I'll study the doll a bit. _POV Ashton_. It took me a week to lose my pursuers. My teacher is a lot easier to lose than all of the flying beasts that had accumulated in that blasted swarm. I can't really fight my teacher. Most of what I can do is a simple hit and run. If I stick around for too long I would likely die. The most annoying part about him right now would be the poison he releases from his pores whenever he feels endangered. This time, he didn't release anything when I was on his shoulder, but that won't be the case the next time. From my observations, there's little I can do to actually kill my old teacher. He can heal from any injury almost instantly. He does have a core I could destroy that could kill him. But that core is around the size of my body and it's constantly moving around. So actually finding it is quite impossible. Now, I've decided against stopping to make yet another cave. Why? Well, I'm already in a swamp area. So, it will at most take me a day to look for the nest of the hellbells. I need to be careful though, they will be hiding in the waters and I will need to be prepared for that mind-altering move. I do have a few methods to counter it now that I have my relics. But it will still be a bit annoying to deal with. I don't really have any specific relic to deal with that special ability of theirs. But I will be able to kill them instantly. I flew above the swamp for a few hours before I found any trace of those stupid snakes. They really like to waste my time. Thankfully, they are not really that great at stealth, at least not when you compare them to Pap. I could hear the bells chime and I felt my thoughts getting a bit clouded. They seem to be a bit different from the ones on the Zoldyck mountain. It seems they don't have the same small range. I need to be more careful then. I need to do something to disperse the sound. I quickly flew towards the gathering of snakes it was coming from. They were all smaller hellbells, so I will be able to kill them instantly. I just raised my palm and released a powerful explosion in their direction. If they've already been alerted of my presence, I don't care about making sounds anymore. I'll just have to lose another swarm, which is apparently a trend for me. This is likely the last calamity I'll need to fight anyway. I is a lot friendlier. Not that much, but still. The explosion killed a few of the snakes and sent the rest of them flying. I landed near the previous location of the group and looked around a bit. There were at least 30 in the group that tried to attack me. At least half of them are dead, the rest should be out of the fight too. I suddenly felt the ground shake, this time, not from my explosions. I quickly started flying away. In my previous location, a large snake sprouted out of the ground. One much larger than I thought possible. But I guess there really isn't enough known about them for me to make such assumptions in the first place. It must be at least 300 meters 984 feet long, with a width of at least 60 meters 196 feet. I genuinely wasn't expecting something of this size to sprout out of the ground. It instantly tried to crush me with one of its tails as soon as it came outside. I just dashed to the side. Its size doesn't seem to help it a lot in terms of speed. But it does have more power. The tail that missed me hit the ground and fragmented it. The swamp waters were all pushed away by the force of that tail, leaving just a wet ground. Then, I heard a large bell chime. It was loud. Louder than a live explosion. But what made me hate this thing even more is that it was just as powerful as those eyes from the abyss. Which I guess are the greater gods. Does that mean the calamities are just created by these greater gods to defend the secrets of these tablets? This is annoying. But I can still resist the mind control using my aura. It seems to be eating away at it quickly enough, however. I need to act quickly in order to still have enough stamina to outrun another swarm. I exploded myself forwards and rushed towards the bell part of this giant snake. I doubt an explosion from the outside will deal that much damage, but I can always just turn its neck into a live bomb. Which is exactly what I am going to do. I think this beast is actually the main cause for that army being wiped out. Maybe it hit underground and just sounded its bell? Whatever, I reached the bell of the creature and covered it entirely in my N. I imbued it in my parasitic explosion and quickly flew away. I detonated it when I was a safe distance away. The snake tried to crush me under its tails a few times, but I managed to dodge most of its attempt. The Hellbell's neck exploded. It did a lot more damage than I expected. It completely blew away its head and sent it flying into the swamplands. The fight was a lot easier than expected. But I wasn't really expecting it to be as difficult as Brian. I already knew how dangerous the snakes were. And while the large one was a lot more powerful, it was at the expense of speed. So it was weirdly balancing itself out. Being stupidly big actually made it easier to kill bigger target. The smaller snakes seemed to be crawling around in the ground, trying to either run away or run towards me. I quickly grabbed one of the live snakes and put it in my void storage. Capturing an intact live example of this race is quite nice. I didn't have the opportunity on the Zoldyck mountain. It's a good thing I have it now. After that, I quickly rushed into the tunnel that the large Hellbell had uncovered. I flew around the dark caverns for a bit, only using Gyo to see. All until I finally reached a larger room. I assumed I'd find another altar here. But it seems that's not the case at all. I just found an old chest. It looks just like the chest in which I kept my relics, but smaller. It's made out of the strange stone and it's lacking a key. I just nabbed it and started flying away from there. I doubt there are many things to uncover in this place. The swarm didn't even get to this place, so all I need to do right now is run away. There's nothing to stop me. _POV Ashton_. After getting away from the swamp, I reached yet another cave. I set up a few appliances and then took out the earth's creature. It was a bit too big for the cave, so it controlled the earth around it to create a bigger room for itself. This creature is quite fascinating. I don't really get where its earth-controlling abilities come from. But, if I remember correctly, each one of its species has a different Hatsu. So I guess it might be related to the people that created them in the first place. Maybe the post-mortem Nen mimicked some of the aspects of their respective users. The worm turned around in different directions, eventually making the cave about as large as the one I found it in. I guess it will make this one its new nest. It didn't seem too interested in interacting with me though. It just stood there and curled itself in a resting position. It's not really fully healed, but its wounds are negligible at this point. So I can just let it rest. Now that I think about it, this Earth's creature was a lot stronger than that large Hellbell. Well, it's also got a much more useful ability to use against me. Controlling Earth is useful in any situation, which is also why I made a Hatsu like that. Still, it's strange that the Earth's creature isn't all that bothered by the change in its surroundings. And also that it's somewhat ignoring me. But I won't think too deeply about it. Instead, I'll take out Pito and spend some time with her before looking at that doll in the chest. I'll have to force the chest open eventually. But I don't think I'll be able to find out anything new about that doll. It's not like I haven't looked at it closely in the past. But I guess I am also a lot more intelligent than I was in the past. I pulled Pito out of the void space. She looked around for a bit. She jumped when seeing the Earth's creature just sleeping in a corner, but calmed down when I patted her back. Great to see you're still lively. It's been a few eventful weeks since I've last seen you, I said with a smile. She already knows that time passes for me when she's inside that void space, so it's not that big of a reveal. She just looked surprised at the amount of time that passed than anything else. How have you been? Were you injured? Her concern is nice to see, but even she must know that it's unfounded. It still makes one feel more fulfilled? I guess I can call it that. Pito is basically someone I raised. The reminder that she will one day despise me is quite saddening, but I did lay down this road for myself. I guess I will have to walk it. Well, not that I feel bad for it. Creating a connection with her would have been impossible otherwise. Even if she decides she doesn't want to have anything to do with me anymore, I can always just let her go. I've nothing left to research about her specifically. But it would still be a shame for all of the work I put in raising her properly. Oh well, I'll think about it when I get to it. I'm healthy. Kinda strange that you haven't asked about the elephant in the room though, I said with a strange smile. Oh yeah? What's with the worm? She asked with a curious tone. Oh yeah, she says. Like it wasn't on her mind the whole time. She's been sending it glances every few seconds. Well, I basically ruined its last nest and brought it here. It's not hostile at all, so don't worry about it, I said as I waved my hand around a bit. I see. Do you still have that book? Well, there she goes again. Reading fairy tales and other fantastical stories. I guess it's fine as long as she has fun. I kind of gave up on making her stronger during this trip. She simply doesn't have the willpower necessary to learn Nen properly. I would be lying if I said that I didn't consider this in the past. I just hoped it wouldn't be that big of an issue. It seems she's just not interested in growing stronger at all. A bit wasteful considering how talented she is. But I won't force her, she wouldn't be able to help me all that much anyway. I had kind of forgotten how much running around I'd have to do while on the continent. Actually having someone with me would make things problematic. I guess it's time to look at the things I have newly acquired. The doll was the first one. I'm not really sure how to approach this. But I guess I could just rip it apart to check for anything special. The Earth's creature didn't actually seem to care about the doll. I guess it was just holding on to it like it would a pillow. It's a bit hard to discern. But upon dissecting the doll, I only found a really small piece of paper. It was ripped, the message on it was clearly washed up and aged. But, I could still make it out. Whatever paper this was, it was a lot more durable than your regular notebook. It basically wrote "Don't trust writings." Quite ironic coming from a written piece of paper. I don't really know why I didn't cut open the doll before. Must be just me ignoring the obvious clues around me once more. I mean, even if I did, this wouldn't have given me much at the time. I would have probably ignored it and forgotten about it by now. So I guess it's better that I discovered it now. Question is, which are the texts that I can trust? I somehow doubt that all of them are truthful about everything. But one of them was still definitely more trustworthy than the other. For now though, I guess I will trust none of them and keep looking for more. I am quite close to seeing the full picture anyway. Well, this is already more than I expected to find on the doll. Although I don't know what the doll moving by itself was about. Maybe it was just hallucinations? Who knows? Maybe I'll find the answers eventually. Now, I could try to break the chest open here. But I'd actually have to use Nen in order to do so. This chest is extremely tough. So, I'll go a distance away and break it open there, then come back here, hopefully undetected. _POV Ashton_. I flew in the distance and above the clouds. I flew as high as I could. I don't really want to attract much attention, but the higher I am, the easier it will be for me to flee later. I looked at the small chest in my hands. It was more the size of a lockbox now that I think about it. But it does look similar to my circlet chest. This one also had a slot for a circlet, but it's much smaller, and I don't plan on actually looking for it. This continent is like 100 times the size of Lake Mobius. Finding a small circlet is almost impossible. Who knows how long I'd have to look to find it. I'd much rather just break the lock and continue with my day. So, how exactly should I even go about breaking this lock? Actually breaking the chest itself might both damage the insides and be a bit too draining. The best option is to imbue the lock mechanism with my explosive Hatsu and only detonate small parts of the lock repeatedly until a part of it gives. So, I did just that. I started by using it slowly and carefully. The explosions on the lock mechanism slowly got stronger as my patience also started running out. The lock was still not budging, at least not visibly. The material that made the outside of the box is incredibly tough, but the mechanism inside seemed to be a bit flimsier. So, I turned my attention to it entirely, creating small explosions until the chest's mechanism gave out. I didn't open the chest instantly, I only opened my void storage and threw it inside. It's already been 3 minutes of constantly using my Nen, something is bound to go wrong, it usually does. I started fleeing in the opposite direction of the hideout, not wanting to lead anything there. After around 30 minutes of flying, I noticed that there weren't any flying beasts looking for me. Rather, there was nothing of the sort. The situation left me quite confused. I mean, I wasn't about to start complaining, but I still find it weird about it. I don't think they have a set range in which they should be able to detect me. As long as I am in the territory of the Dark Continent, then it should be fair game. Maybe there were no beasts nearby and my use of Nen wasn't enough to attract any either? Oh well, I'll just fly back towards the cave and look at the contents of that chest. There's nothing else to do at this point. The trip towards Ice Cave won't take that long, after all, they were also on the shore southeast of Lake Mobius. Well, at least they were relatively closer to the shore than the swamp area of the Hell Bells. It shouldn't really be dangerous. Although, I am a bit curious whether or not the AIS are still there. They are parasitic entities, so they shouldn't have stayed there for too long. They don't have that much control over the host, so the cave is most likely deserted. Still, I hope to at least find something in there. If not, I'll have to make a trip back to Lake Mobius to find Aluka, the little girl that happens to be a host for an eye. I won't capture her though, I'll just make a wish. The problem here is, that I don't know how highly the knowledge I want is valued in Ai's eyes. If that is even the condition for this one. I know that the members of the species don't set the same conditions for their wish granting. I learned it the first time I encountered them. While deep in thought, I managed to make my way back to the cave, where the Earth's creature was still just sleeping around, not really caring about my presence. It's a bit odd, but I don't really plan on taking it with me, so this might be for the better. Pito, on the other hand, is also not reacting all that much to my reappearance. She's just reading her books in peace, ignoring me like I did something wrong. Is she already at that age? I mean, I guess chimera ants grow differently from humans. I didn't really bring it up right now, I still have a lot of stuff to deal with. First off, let's see what's inside this random chest. A small click is all I heard as I opened it, the hinges sounding like they were mostly made out of rust. Inside the small chest, was a simple ornamental knife. It didn't look all that sharp, and it certainly didn't look special. But, the small page that it had underneath it told a different story. The sacrificial dagger. A relic used in tandem with the crown of thorns. It's meant to be the only way to complete the ritual to awaken that thing. The ritual itself is extremely simplistic and completely barbaric. Simply put, you grab a fair maiden, force her to wear the crown of thorns, then bring her to this temple and use the knife to pierce their heart while putting them over the altar. There is seemingly some more preparation to make, and I guess I won't be getting any more informational clues from now on. It seems most of what I gain is objects related to this stupid ritual. I don't plan on doing the ritual at all, but I will visit the temple at some point, only after finishing my journey here. I placed the sacrificial dagger in my void space without thinking much about it. It's pretty much a useless item. But, who knows, maybe I will need it one day, even if I don't plan on completing the ritual anytime soon. Well, that about settles it. I guess I will rest here for a week or two before resuming my journey. P.S. There is no chapter 141 _POV Ashton_. I rested for a day or two. During that time, Pito barely talked with me, only responding whenever I asked her something. Likely out of respect, but it's a bit weird. What exactly have I done to make her angry? It's a bit too soon to realize that I've done some psychological conditioning on her. And I don't think I did anything wrong other than that. I guess I can ask her. My pride would usually prevent me from even talking to her out of spite, but I do somewhat care about her now. So I guess it's worth the effort. I just walked up to her and stared at her. She pretended to keep reading, but I could see her gaze turn towards me from time to time, even if for a split second. "Why are you ignoring me?" I asked while glaring at her. I still sound too cold, but she's kind of used to that being my usual emotion. "What? I'm not ignoring you. Does she really want to play like this? I'm not feeling up to it, but I still want to know what's wrong with her." "Don't play around. I can tell something is wrong. Do you need anything? Or maybe I did something without realizing it? I mean, I'm already extending an olive branch by even approaching her." I even had the thought of, genuinely apologizing. Those are not thoughts that usually enter my head. So I guess this is a special occasion. She did finally put her book down and stared down, not really saying anything and just looking at her own legs for a while. Eventually, though, she did start speaking. "What exactly are we doing here? I think there's more to that question." I did tell her we're on a dangerous trip to look into some stuff about my past. So she does know the general location. So, this question should rather be, "What are you hiding from me?" I can tell she's not quite pleased that I never bothered explaining things to her. I guess that is my bad. I am quite used to doing these things alone. These things are also quite delicate, and about my past. But Peter should at least know a thing or two about my past. Well, she certainly wants to know about it. I wonder how much I should tell her exactly. I mean, I don't feel like going on a tirade about everything in my homeland. So I'll just give her a basic explanation. Well, this place is, or used to be, my homeland. As you already know. But, a long time ago something made everything in it go mad, and I am trying to find the source of it. That should about sum things up. It kinda started with me wanting to look into the calamities. But I guess they are the same. They are so closely tied together that it might as well not make a difference. I will still study the biology of any calamity I can. But I first need to finish up with this treasure hunt, I guess. I see. I'm tired. You always just call me out from time to time. Then ignore me for most of the day while concentrating on other things. Can I really not come with you? She's asked me about this before. She wants to spend more time with me. She wants me to give her more and more attention. To her, it should be like we are constantly together since there is no time in the void space. It's like she's just teleporting to different caves all the time. So, I guess she is just sad that most of the time I bring her out I just spend on reading things and deciphering texts. Was I being inconsiderate with her? Or maybe I spoiled her a bit? Oh well, she'll get over this sooner or later. We've talked about this before. It's dangerous. I don't want you to get hurt. I didn't bring you here so you can die, I said while patting her head. But it seems that showing concern isn't really enough for her. But you're strong, right? You can protect me, can't you? I guess this has been on her mind for a while. But I don't really know how to put this. Most of the time, I need to retreat and run away from large swarms of powerful monsters. By myself, I am not really in much danger. She looked up at me, finally locking eyes with me. But I don't know if I will be able to save you all the time. Sorry, but that's a risk I am not willing to take. The first genuine apology in a long time. Well, there was also the one I put in Mama's letter. But that was written, so I won't count it. Peter didn't really know how to react to my words. She just stared at me for a bit, trembling as her eyes slowly started tearing up. Now, as I've stated before, when Mama's was crying, I really don't have any idea what to do in a situation like this. This is where my social inaptitude truly shines. But I guess it's more of an empathic inaptitude than a social one now that I think about it. Sorry, thank you. Now, I guess she's not exactly sad since she jumped up and hugged me. I guess things could have gone a lot worse. Seeing her stress over such silly things is quite concerning. I should have maybe kept her around more when not doing something explicitly dangerous like stealing from a rock or fighting a calamity. But I guess I've just been focused on traveling quickly from one place to another. I grave guess there are some places that she might be able to go to. Well, as long as she's with me. You know. Now that I think about it, there is somewhere nearby where we might be able to go. She suddenly looked up at me, her shining. I don't want to put her in danger, but I won't need to attract any swarm while going there. So, maybe I won't even need to throw her in the void space. It's a place I've known for a long time, and something I planned on visiting anyway. I called it the Spring of Life. 4_POV Ashton_. A beautiful land filled with natural splendor, a lake of pure unadulterated vitality standing right in the middle of it. Laying in it will heal just about anyone instantly. It will also extend their lifespan to a great degree. This might be one of the biggest reasons for my former seemingly endless vitality. The lake seems to heal all wounds, and it seems to consider aging a type of illness too. It completely stops it beyond a certain point. At least I assume so. I used to take baths in it daily near the beginning of my life. And I completely stopped aging around that time too, at the ripe young age of 26. Now, I can assume that all of the other reagents I consumed also had a lot to do with that. But the spring is likely to be the actual reason for my immortality. I doubt nitro rice can extend the lifespan to such an extent. I still remember the time I took Netero, Zig and Lin to visit it. Well, it's not the most pleasant of memories. See? If you take a dip then we can all live for countless years together. That is what I said in my childish innocence. I may have been old, but I was still not all that developed in many aspects. The looks they gave me should have said it all, but I kept insisting for a while, only to be one day rejected outright. The three of them all had their own reasons to refuse my offer. Netero wanted to become the strongest in his natural lifespan, saying that he might take me up on my offer after a few years. But he never did, he never even brought it up. Lin only said that she thought it wasn't natural. She had nothing against me, but she didn't want to live for so long apparently. Zig only said that he didn't want to watch generations of his own family perish while he was still young and immortal. It was heartbreaking for me at the time to see them all reject my offer. That even might have been something I used to try to distance myself from them further. Especially Lin, since she said it wasn't natural, which made me feel quite bad at the time. As I was also technically unnatural in her view. It is a bit silly to think about it now. With a more mature outlook on things, I can tell that she didn't mean to insult me in any way. But I couldn't at the time. And that drove a wedge in between all of us. I still hung out with them, even a few years after leaving the Dark Continent. But, the second I realized that they were starting to age, I separated myself from them. Now, I'm revisiting the spring out of curiosity. I remember this place being a sanctuary, none of the beasts even touched it. My teacher called it, the source of life. It was more of an iconic place than the actual heart of the Dark Continent. Now, all I can see is a dying plot of land. The vibrant colors of before are now painting a bleak picture. The trees bent down and broken, the rainbow-hued leaves are all dried up and broken. The flowers are long since dead. Where the lake once stood, there is merely a puddle left. A small, not even ankle-deep, puddle. It's both sad and infuriating at the same time. You always see humans crying about how other humans are badly affecting the ecosystem. But I guess this is much in the same nature. A place that was supposed to be protected by the beasts is ruined by them. "Is this the place you wanted to show me?" asked Pito curiously, a finger touching her chin as she looked around at the desolate scene. "It used to be beautiful scenery. I feel saddened that you won't get to experience it," I said as I patted her head. My sadness was masked properly, she couldn't tell anything was wrong through my poker face. But seeing the spring of life in this state isn't a pleasant experience. I guess it could be because I'm associating it to how the people I brought here are now. The memory of them will live in me for a long time. But I won't ever be able to personally experience them ever again. Lin may be still alive. But she doesn't have long. I could see it. She's also aware of it. I prefer to remember her for who I knew her as, rather than who she has become. I slowly walked towards the puddle, entering the crater that was once a lake. It was a deep one too. but now it's just a jump of 50 to 60 meters. Pedo followed me. Such a fall didn't really bother her, as she's still physically superior to most Nen users. "Are we heading for that puddle?" asked Pedo, still looking around the crater. I can tell that even with this bleak scenery, she was at least having fun. Not cooped up in a cave or sitting around in a camp. I guess she's the explorer type. That can be nice. She will wish for power soon though. I can already tell it's been on her mind, especially since it seems like she wants to accompany me through dangers too. "Of course. I feel like taking a closer look," I said as I gained a spring in my step. Although this was a puddle, it was still around 4 meters in diameter. I crouched down and took some water in my palm. I drank it down with a smile. "Is it safe to drink?" asked Pedo while looking at me. "It's safe. It can only be good for you," I said as I slowly got up. I could feel my vitality slowly replenishing. Pedo also took some of it and drank. But she didn't look all that interested in it. I opened a small rift underneath it, sucking it all up in my void space. Then, I proceeded to drink it all. Well, gradually. On my way back to the cave and while resting for a few more days. Slowly, my appearance reverted to my previous 26-year-old one. Pedo was startled to see the change. But I just told her that I can change my appearance a bit. Which is technically all that the palm did. It also made me regenerate faster. Still not to my previous level, but it is manageable. After a while, I packed everything up and prepared to leave. Pedo reluctantly entered my void space and told me to take care. I was about to leave the cave, but I was stopped by my other roommate who finally decided to stop ignoring me. _POV Ashton_. The Earth's creature turned its head towards me as I was leaving. All of the time I spent in this cave, this creature didn't even seem to acknowledge my presence. But now it's moving around to block my exit. I can tell it's not aggressive in any way. But it seems to want something from me. And I don't really know what to do about it. Well, I might have an idea of what it actually wants from me. I ripped space open and took out the doll. The creature wriggled around as soon as I took it out. I had undone its threads to find that note, but I stitched it back up afterwards. Now, I did watch it for a bit during my stay here. I found out that there's nothing really special about it. There's no aura to it, no indication as to show what it is. Maybe my memories of it are clouded? Maybe I was not in a good state of mind at the time and I created my own companions. Regardless, the doll doesn't hold much sentimental value to me. It's an item from my past, sure, but it doesn't seem to awaken any nostalgic feeling in me. So, I don't really need this doll. I might as well give it to the Screecher. In the few days I stayed here I observed quite a few things about it. 1. It wasn't ignoring me, it was resting. Apparently, my attacks had tired it out greatly, and it needed to rest for a long time after that even with me healing it. And, since it decided to rest while I was here, that must mean that it started to trust me after I healed it, and it also isn't attached to me to the point where it wants to follow me. This means that this thing is also a lot more intelligent than I gave it credit for. The Screecher opened its mouth and the woman inside extended her hands towards the doll in a pleading manner. I didn't bother arguing with it, just handed it to her and turned around to leave. I still gazed backwards as I left, curious about the antics of this intriguing creature. The Screech didn't close its mouth, as I had expected it to. It kept it open as the woman also stopped to wave at me, one hand holding the doll while the other waved in the air with energy and emotion. It was a bit strange. But not in a bad way. It showed me that humans were perfectly capable of making intelligent live, highly intelligent at that. It should also hold some memories from the Nen users that formed it, otherwise, it wouldn't have waved at me. It also wouldn't have understood the ancient language. I left the cave with a smile on my face as the entrance closed itself. The Earth's creature probably won't move its nest from this place, but it will still conceal it properly. I flew off, heading in the direction of I's cave. It's not a long journey, only around 4 days of flying. After that, I think I can return to Lake Mobius. Well, The zombie disease has been classified as a threat by humanity. But there's not much that I can do to find out of its origin. At most, I can dissect the only currently afflicted patient of it. But so much research has been done on him that I doubt I will find much of anything useful. There are plenty of diseases to be found on this large continent. Humanity was just unlucky to discover one of the more deadly ones. They've classified it as a threat, but it really isn't one. It's just the way this world works. I never actually got sick myself. But many of the beasts died of sickness in the past. If these beasts can die, then so can humans. I don't really know the origin of the disease, and backtracking the entire expedition from start to finish sounds like a pain. I'd also need Beyond for that, and I don't plan on trying to find him again. So, I'll just proceed to that cave. 4 days later. Well, after months of constant flying, 4 days passes by quickly. I was able to locate it quickly enough. There were a few changes about it. Well, just more overgrown vegetation, nothing too amazing. It did hide parts of the cave entrance though, which basically confirms that this place is abandoned. And it was also completely empty. There was nothing too special to be found inside. Which makes sense, I wasn't expecting all that much. I did look into this place with Zig and Netherlin chickened out, at some point. Well, there are a few broken bones on the ground, looking like they've been twisted to death, or crushed with unnatural force. These aren't human bones, mind you, they are merely beast bones. But it feels quite weird. If I remember correctly, some of the eyes had a condition that made the requirements for wishes progressively harder for each wish depending on the gravity of the previous request. So, who exactly was capable of making wishes in this desolate land? And how, or rather why, did these beasts suffer the backlash of a failed requirement? I don't remember any beasts that were capable of speaking on the continent. My teacher only communicated through telepathy. He didn't even have developed vocal cords. Does that mean I is capable of reading thoughts? Did it consider the desires of the mad monsters as a wish? That's a bit of a stretch in imagination. But I don't have much to go on. A few unnaturally twisted and crushed skeletons don't provide the most concrete evidence. I guess I'll actually have to visit Aluka and Killua later. Aluka is the host to the only specimen that I know of. But I still don't know how big the punishment will be for the next wish if I want to learn about these older gods. What if the information is considered extremely important? What if the next penalty results in the extinction of all mankind, including me? I is an extremely touchy subject. Completely uncontrollable too. I guess I'll have to travel back to Lake Mobius. How long has it been, I wonder? I think it's already been almost a year. I can also stop and see how the other expedition is going. I am in no hurry anyway. I am kind of curious as to how Cheadle and the others handled the Dark Continent migration. I doubt they had that many issues. I think the strongest monster in that place was only a bit weaker than Meruem before he fought Netero. They should be able to handle it though. Oh well, time to prepare for a long ride. I can use Noah's Ark this time though, not like I'm heading anywhere too dangerous. I took the small necklace and looked at the small boat sculpture. It was made out of wood. At least it seems to be. It's a conjured object after all. When I activate this thing, it will grow to a size similar to the black whale, maybe a bit smaller in height. But, it is a lot tougher and it's basically a natural sea beast repellent. The ship itself is extremely simplistic. It seems to have the design of a primitive sailboat, but it doesn't have any sails. It moves in the direction the user wants it. It only consumes ore at the beginning and the end of a journey. Well, I better get on it. I have a long way to go. _POV Ashton_. There's not much to do while sitting on a ship. Even on one as big as this one. Its simplistic design makes it feel even emptier than it actually is. Well, I did take out Pedo for this journey, and danger's already past after all. And I don't need to worry much about other people seeing her with me. We are in the middle of open waters, with no sign of civilization in sight. Well, even when I was on the black whale I didn't worry about that. I did take her out for ice cream after all. But I don't really feel like complicating things with the Hunter Association by telling them I am basically raising a royal guard from a species that's considered a threat to all humanity. Well, Pito herself wasn't exactly having fun. She finally came up to me and asked me to train her after a few days of travel. I guess she took some time to think things over. She should be able to master Nen quite easily. I just hope she has the willpower necessary to do so. Straighten your back. I lightly slapped her back as she trembled a bit. I'm just asking her to meditate a bit, but she seems to get distracted easily. I don't want her to have a disorderly and beastly aura. I want her to have discipline. Having a pristine state of mind is difficult, and not that many humans manage to do so. Netero was a good example. He could reach a perfect state of mind, but he couldn't keep it all the time. He could get emotional and angry. I am quite the same, although I can somewhat control myself. My only qualm is how prideful I can get sometimes. Being prideful isn't always a bad thing, but when you add that to my heightened sense of superiority over every single member of the human race. Well, let's just say I didn't always respond kindly to any of them being disrespectful to me. Well, I am still quite prideful, just maybe a little less aggressive? At least towards people that didn't do something directly to me. I wonder how Mama's has been faring all of this time. Well, I don't expect everything to be fine and dandy. I have a few suspicions as to why too. I did eliminate a great threat to her brothers by getting rid of Tserednik, but someone else seemed quite okay with the idea of murdering her brothers and sisters. Camilla was one of the original members of the Alliance though, killing her at the time would have likely burned any bridge I had built with both Mamas and all of her other siblings. I doubt Camilla can do anything to Mamas, the mark I put on her also didn't inform me of anything wrong. There is also that Nen beast I gave her, which is more than capable of protecting her. Oita and her kid should also be fine, she had Kurapika guarding her. I don't know much about the rest though. This is so boring. Why is my disciple complaining about something as simple as meditation? Did I really spoil her that much? Don't give me that. Didn't you want to get stronger? Get to it. This is the method I used with Krollo, and he learned quite fast. Now that I think about it, it may not be a great idea to use the same methods I used on Krollo. I mean, he didn't really turn into the greatest accomplishment of mine. Change of plans. Get up, I said as I pulled her up, not giving her any chance to do so herself. She just looked a bit confused. What's wrong? I think we need to repeat the basics first a bit. Meditating in this state might not get us all that far. I remember actually drugging Krollo to reach that calm state. I don't want to do the same for Pito. But I remember them clearly. I enveloped myself with aura with Ten. She did just that as she spoke. I keep my aura from leaking with Zetsu. She retracted all of her aura inside her body. She's not that bad. I guess that's just her talent showing itself. I project my aura outwards using Ren. I can also tinge it with hostility to scare people. She did just that, spreading her Ren quite far. It's the same feeling I had when I met her in that forest. Well, maybe a little less bloodthirsty. And finally, Hatsu, which I can use to project my aura to fulfill different functions. Good thing I thought her Dr. Blythe. Now she has something to show me. Good. I'm glad that you've been paying attention. But you haven't truly mastered any of them, I said as I patted her head a bit. Your Ten has a habit of leaving you a bit open on the sides. Your Zetsu is slow and unstable. Your Ren is decent, but it lacks polish. As for Hatsu, I would recommend you create something yourself. She looked up at me a bit. Hatsu should be a form of self-expression for a Nen user. A way for them to show their knowledge and to craft something personal. I shook my head a bit. I somewhat regret teaching her Dr. Blythe now. I taught you one for convenience sake, but I want you to have something you can truly call your own. Her eyes shined a bit as she nodded her head. At least she understands the importance of this. I doubt she will come up with something anytime soon, but at least she's trying. You should practice on the first 3 for today. I want to see some progress tomorrow, I said with a smile. I also need to find a reward for her, Success begets a reward after all. At least that's what I need to try. I already show her a lot of affection, but I do have a few things I can give her to become stronger. I still have a week to reach the continent Mama's is on, so Pito has enough time to progress. She's already about at the same level she was when I met her. With her talent, she will become stronger than the Zodiacs in 2 or 3 months. Well, back to laying on my beach chair and sipping on my cocktail. I like some peace after a journey filled with stressful situations. _POV narration _ While Ashton was out, exploring the Dark Continent and looking for answers, the remaining members of the Zodiacs also had a lot to deal with. The monkey had betrayed them, he had also died in the ensuing chaos. But what they found more annoying was that they couldn't catch the expedition team in time. It was all because of a single man. That strange air manipulation Hatsu was what had ruined their plans. After that, Cheeto was forced to report her failure to the V5. They were by no means pleased. Thankfully, they also didn't blame her for the failure. But they still decided to put some sanctions on the Hunter Association. Something that annoyed Cheeto to no end. But the rest of the journey went smoothly, besides a few hiccups and the disappearance of an expensive ship. There was nothing else. Cheeto knew that the ship was stolen, but they reported it as a disappearance, to avoid further punishment from the V5. After that, they managed to clear out the land around the perimeter of the shoreline, which allowed the rest of the workers and the migrating population to move in quickly. The hand-picked builders hurried their work and created housing for many of the people, allowing them to move from the boat into their new homes. The entire process still took at least 4 months, during which time, the hunters cleared up more land and explored the forests a bit more. They split themselves into teams, each team was led by a Zodiac member, and they were all looking around for either a better place to settle than the shoreline or just exploring the lands around the new camp. Cheeto herself didn't get to lead any team, as she was appointed the doctor. Both she and Leorio were needed to help the injured back at the camp. But the exploration effort didn't slow down, the rest of the hunters were all trained and prepared for the expedition. They managed to look into at least a quarter of the continent in the span of a year. By then, the workers had already built 3 small cities and moved all of the population inside them. While the population was mostly moved inside these cities, the royalty and the rest of the politicians and actors decided to wait for more luxurious housing. They remained on the ship for the time being. The princes of the Kakan Empire were also remaining on the ship, but for different reasons. Recently, 3 of their siblings had turned out dead. Namely, Zhonglei, Lazarus, and Tyson. The siblings were terrified, as they didn't know who exactly was planning these assassinations. Well, Haukenberg had his suspicions, but he couldn't throw any baseless accusation around, lest the situation was turned on its head and people started suspecting him too. The obvious culprit was none other than Camilla, at least in Haukenberg's eyes. She had decided that getting rid of a few candidates might make things easier for the later election. She decided to get rid of as many of her siblings as possible. She played her cards right, and not a lot of people were suspecting her. Well, besides the ones that already didn't trust her. She still found it regretful that she failed to lure Ashton to her cause. But she still thought that her chances to win the crown were high. And, since Ashton was out of the picture, she could run wild for a bit. This turned the situation into a mess, for both the hunters and the rest of the people present. Cheeto and the rest had barely been resting the entire time. And there was still a lot to do. Now, they also needed to investigate murders, which was yet another job to pile on their heads. They were already spread thin as it was. The teams could barely keep up with patrolling the already discovered and explored territories. The rest of the soldiers were only patrolling the proximity of the cities. The Zodiacs had yet to encounter any obscenely strong monsters, but they still heeded Ashton's warning. They proceeded with caution. Well, most of them did. A certain tiger in the group he was leading was venturing forth a bit farther than necessary, and he was about to come face to face with the beast that could ruin their entire expedition. _POV Kanzai_. This is so boring. We've been made to patrol the same territories that we already have secured. These pompous pricks didn't even get the soldiers to help us. It's beyond annoying. There's not even much that Cheeto can do, we are basically lackeys at this point. I miss the old chairman. He would never have let us get pushed around like this. But I guess the circumstances are a bit grave. I can't even blame Cheeto for it. So much shit is happening all at once that it becomes hard for us to keep up with everything. Still, I'm sick and tired of looking at the same trees, the same valleys, encountering the same harmless species. I will take my team and look a bit further this time. I want to see more of this continent. I am strong enough to protect myself anyway. I doubt anything bad will happen. That Ashton guy was likely just exaggerating the dangers to make sure we were cautious. There weren't any notable threats that we couldn't handle yet. So, I led my team and ran 100 kilometers deeper this time. Then 100 more. We explored our surroundings for a day. Then, I could see the forest shifting in front of us. I looked around, only to notice that the entirety of my team had stopped and was backing off a bit. Then I could immediately sense danger. It made me come to a stop instantly and jump backwards with all of my strength. The place I was in previously shifted itself, as something rose out of the ground. A large, bulky lizard-looking monster rose from the ground and looked around in a curious manner. Its scales were a dark brown, its eyes were green and filled with anger. Its back was covered in the earth and trees that I was just about to step on. I could feel some cold sweat on my back. This thing is dangerous. Then, it spotted us. It rose its head and opened its mouth, releasing a roar so powerful that it shook the entire forest. Just the shockwave of its roar blew away all of the trees around us along with my entire team of hunters. They immediately turned tail and started running. I followed too. The monster was making its way towards us with a speed similar to mine. It will soon catch up to the rest of the hunters. What the fuck is that? Asked one of the hunters fearfully. I don't know. But we're in danger. I know this won't end well. If we just run towards the cities then we'd probably lead it towards the rest. And that would just cause more death. I gritted my teeth a bit. And stopped. You guys go ahead. I'll hold it back, I shouted at them. Only one or two even looked at me, the rest just kept running, as I told them. I immediately covered my body with aura, my features slowly changing into those of a tiger. I ran towards the monster and jumped towards its head. I simply opened its mouth and roared again. Because I was airborne, I was not able to get any foothold, so I was sent flying backwards and into the forest. I didn't let that discourage me. I bolted towards one of its legs, covering my hands in aura and slashing at its legs. My claws didn't even get in to scratch its skin properly. It raised the leg I was trying to cut and it stomped the ground. I managed to jump away in time, and the shockwave sent me flying once more. Its large leg crushed the ground and shook the entire forest once more. It cracked open the earth and created a chasm so deep that I could barely see the bottom of it. How am I supposed to fight this thing? _POV narration _ The fight waged on for a while, Kanzai doing his best to buy time and dodging around the beast. He couldn't injure the beast properly at all. At most, he was scratching its skin with his claw. It was simply too big for such a small attack to do any significant damage. He still dashed around it and cut it at every point he could. But, with every step the beast took, the Zodiac member was pushed away violently. There was little he could do, especially if he was caught in midair. He was doing his best to stall for time in order for the rest of his team to run away. But he knew that it would take a while for them to be able to announce some other teams about the attack. He knew that they needed at least a few hours to get in range for their radios to work. So, he needed to buy as much time as possible. Even though the situation looked extremely bleak to him. He was faster than the beast, but it wasn't by such a large margin. The beast could still react to his moves. And it was much stronger and more durable than him. Most of the time, he found himself having to dodge than attack. Thankfully the beast didn't seem to have that difficult an attack pattern. Konzai could still somewhat hold on. The problem was, would he be able to hold on for a few hours? His teammates were currently still making their way towards the nearest patrol camp. One of them was constantly trying to contact the others, but they still had a long way to go. None of them was preserving any speed, but they weren't exactly the fastest of hunters around. So, they were still not fast enough. While all of this was going down, Ashton was skillfully getting his ship onto the shore. He didn't need to worry about having to pull it out since it was just a relic. He couldn't see any humans at his point of arrival, but he didn't really need to. He would find them eventually. At the moment, however, something else caught his attention. A sound that he was most accustomed to. A large beast stomping onto the ground. Some might mistake this for an earthquake out of ignorance, but he wasn't one to make such a mistake. _POV Ashton _ Now, who exactly managed to stir awake the only beast that can be considered dangerous on this continent? I remember the compendium calling it the land lizard, a stupid name, but it's apparently a species that lives somewhat underground. It's usually slumbering, but when someone steps on the ground above it, it's always awakened. I think all of the zodiacs together can defeat it. But I don't think they'd happen to be together for this encounter. All of them should have different responsibilities if I remember correctly. But, maybe they formed a hunting party. I did inform them of this beast, so they shouldn't be ignorant to it. Still, I believe it's better to check it out. I might want to say hello to Cheetah anyway. What's with all of the sounds? Pedo finally stirred up the courage to open her mouth. She has sensitive ears, so she can definitely tell this isn't really an earthquake. I didn't think the land lizard would be this close to shore. Well, I say close, but it's like at least 100 kilometers away. A wild beast. Say, are you up for a little hunt? Pedo suddenly seemed excited. I guess she wants to fight something that she actually has chances to defeat. Well, at least in her own mind. I doubt she can actually do it as she is now. But I think sparring with me gave her an odd view of the power structure of the world. It's not that she thinks she is weaker. It's the opposite. Since I sometimes went easy on her, she thinks every enemy is going to be a breeze compared to me. Well, I think fighting this might change her mind. My words didn't really help much. By now, she also developed a Hatsu. She's a specialist, and, I must say, she got quite inventive with her ideas. Apparently, she took it from one of the books she was reading. Something about a wizard traveling the world and solving mysteries using his powers. Basically, her current Hatsu is something she called the Wizard's Book. It's a reactive type Hatsu that will open itself and give Pedo the most appropriate ability for any certain situation. It's sometimes a minor boost in strength or speed, sometimes temporary control over an element. A lot of the spells inside that book are quite inventive. But it's obviously not complete. She only had a week to do it after all. And she's only come up with this idea 4 days ago. It would have taken her much longer if I didn't give her some pointers. But at least it's something that she can use to fight. So it's already better than Dr. Blythe. Well, there are a few problems with that book. What would you expect from something we patched together in a few days? Let's start heading that way. I am also curious about who is fighting it right now, I said as I started walking. She also started following me, skipping around excitedly. Since when is she so excited about fighting? This is a lot like the previous pedo, but there shouldn't be any trace of her left inside this pedo. Is it just the instinct of a chimera ant? Maybe, they differ from specimen to specimen. But it's likely just for pedo, depending on what animal she was made out of. If we were to just walk there, it would take us quite a while. So I picked pedo up and just started exploding myself over there. I don't need to worry about using Nen in this place since there's not much to threaten me here. I will remain vigilant though. I don't know what I might find in these places. I don't want a repeat of my second encounter with Miriam _POV narration_. Konzai was not having a great time. He was almost crushed by the land lizard quite a few times. There were very few things he could do now, dancing circles around it and hoping that it wasn't intelligent enough to spot such an obvious pattern of movement. But, eventually, the inevitable happened. A stomp of the beast got too close, it grazed his hand and managed to rip apart a lot of his skin and shred his muscles. The aura that covered his body seemed to pop like a balloon in front of the beast's overwhelming power. Kanzai was sent flying, a pained grunt coming out of his mouth as he twisted himself in the air and tried to land safely on the ground. Just like that, in a split second, one of his hands became useless. Kanzai could handle the pain, but it still slowed him down a bit. The beast seemed to extend its tongue, an attack that Kanzai had yet to see. He managed to jump backwards in time, the tongue crushed his previous position. But it didn't stop there, it still rocketed towards him, coiling around him and slowly gripping him with more strength. Kanzai struggled, he didn't scream, he didn't speak, but the panicked look on his face said everything. He knew he was about to die, and he only had himself to blame for it. Both of his hands were completely immobilized, he couldn't even slightly move them in any way. He had no way to free himself. Well, all until he heard a series of explosions, each one got closer and closer to him and the beast. The beast also heard them, it looked in the distance as its grip on Kanzai lessened slightly. The tiger took that opportunity to shred apart the beast's tongue with his intact hand and jumped away. At the side, a familiar figure appeared. Ashton carrying Pito and looking at the battle with mild disinterest. "What? Why are you here alone?" the old scientist asked with a raised eyebrow while looking at Kanzai. The short-tempered member of the Zodiacs just sighed in relief. He recognized the figure, even if he looked a bit different. He would have time to ask about that later though. "I didn't think I'd ever be this happy to see you," he said with a tired grin, as he held his broken and torn apart hand. _POV Ashton_. Okay, first of all, rude. I looked at the land lizard, it's probably been fighting Kanzai for a while now. Its legs are filled with cuts and scratches. Its head is mostly untouched. Kanzai was likely afraid to get too close to its mouth. Pretty smart for someone stupid enough to ignore my warning in the first place. It seems you are in quite a pickle. You're lucky I happened to want to see how things were faring on this continent, I said while looking at the man. Pito was already crouched down and prepared to pounce on the land lizard. She is also preparing to take out that Hatsu of hers. Kanzai mustered the energy to dash to my side and signed a bit. "Thanks a lot. I really thought I was a goner," he said with a grimace. "That thing is really strong. I thought you said we could defeat it?" It seems he wasn't paying complete attention to my warning. "Well, I said that all of you grouped should stand a chance against it. Facing it alone might be a bit much." His eyes widened a bit as he scratched the back of his head in embarrassment. I see. So, how are we going to deal with this? You are strong, but it seems a bit much." "Well, fair enough, he's never seen me fight before. Don't worry, I can take care of a beast at this level. But I want my disciple over here to give it a try first." He raised an eyebrow at first. He then looked at Pito for a bit. The silly girl is already dashing towards the beast, with her book in hand. She looks pretty strong, but I doubt she has much of a chance. "I don't think she's all that stronger than me right now," he said while looking at her. I remember him being a bit more hot-headed. I didn't think he'd admit to someone being stronger than him. But I guess his perception is pretty good. Indeed, you could likely defeat her too, since you have a lot more experience than her. But I want her to learn from this experience. He looked at me weirdly for a bit. I guess in his eyes I am sending her to a near-death experience to learn. I guess this method is a bit unorthodox. I mean, I could have found a decently strong beast that would have the capability to kill her in one hit. But then she would still be this overconfident. You're a bit crazy. But you did save my life. I doubt reinforcements will be here anytime soon either. Have fun, I guess." He sat down and started dripping his clothes to bandage his wounds. "No need to do that. I took out the basic first aid kit from my void space. I would obviously carry something like that with me. It's somewhat essential for Pito in case she ever gets injured. I don't need it. And using a relic for healing at all times isn't all that good. I do want her to experience some pain if only to get used to it. Like she is experiencing now. She dashed in carelessly and got blown away by a simple stomp of that beast. She's lucky she wasn't closed enough to get crushed underneath it. By the way, do you age backwards or something? This is a strange question, but I guess it's quite appropriate. Oh no, this is how I usually look. A lot of Nen users can change their appearance. I do this as to not let people guess my age, I said with a raised finger. Wait, so you're an old man? Said this little shit with a grin on his face. Don't be disrespectful. It's rude to laugh at others. My composed comment didn't seem to make it any better. PFFT, you even speak like an old man. Is it too late to feed this guy to the land lizard? I heard a scream and I fixated my eyes back on the fight. Pito already got injured it seems. The land lizard smacked her into the ground using its tongue. Pito seems to be throwing fireballs at it, but that's not really effective against the lizard. Since she got this spell to use, the book doesn't have anything good to counter the beast. Or Pito is far too panicked to analyze its weaknesses. The book makes the judgment itself, but it relies on the user's information and perception. If Pito realized that its weakness was, let's say water, she would have gotten a water spell. It's a bit funny to see her get slapped around like this. It reminds me of when my teacher did the same to me. Well, he took me to a legendary beast for a spar. I was really overconfident back then. I think it was a phoenix if I remember correctly. It wiped the floor with me. I didn't even have relics at the time, and I was trying to use the wind to cut a bird made out of flames. Ha, good times. Shouldn't we help her? Kanzai was already preparing to dash into the fray to help Pito out. That's nice of him, but it's not really needed right now. I want her to fight a bit more. Don't worry, you can rest for now. I'll take care of everything, I said while waving his offer away. It's nice to have allies willing to fight for you. This also shows that this guy isn't an ungrateful person. Sure. But she's getting a bit overwhelmed there. He sat back down and started putting his broken arm in a makeshift sling. Pito seemed to be getting a bit desperate. She's probably broken a few bones. As much as I hate seeing her hurt, I know this is necessary. She needs to learn fear in order to overcome it. _POV Ashton_. This beast seems to be getting a bit irritated at how resilient Pito is. It must have slapped her into the ground quite a few times. She always manages to avoid being stomped on, which is good, at least she won't die so quickly. It's somewhat bizarre to see monsters not solely focusing on me after I unleashed Enihatsu. I guess this continent doesn't count as part of the Dark Continent? It's a bit strange, but I don't mind some peace and quiet after all of that mess in the Dark Continent. I may still have a lot to uncover, but I am now at least somewhat seeing the bigger picture. I don't need to feel so trapped. It's just that I have no way of knowing just how truthful the writings are. I can't trust them completely. But not everything should be a lie. I can piece together the truth by combining the information I got with other sources that I know are truthful. The Compendium of the Wild Hunt is one such source. It can confirm that some species are artificially made, while others were made from Nen, and others were left somewhat ambiguous. It can somewhat confirm that most species on the continent originate from the same source, which I can conclude to be these gods. It feels a bit silly to call them that. But their rivalry with humanity is also hardly faked. The Labyrinth City is proof that the beasts were trying to kill off humanity. There are not even any other cities left in that state. The rest have already turned to dust or are left in more ruined states. The beast that Pito is currently losing against is not exactly specified. But it might just be a result of interspecies breeding. So its origin can only be guessed at. I would wager that it's a combination of a dragon of some kind and a mole. But I can't be too sure. Its physical strength may be quite impressive, but it's slow and doesn't have any method of attack besides its body, which makes it remain on about the same level of strength as that blood spider that almost wiped out the other expedition. Pito is also dancing circles around it in an effort to avoid its somewhat long tongue. She finally started learning from her mistakes. It only took getting smashed into the ground a few times. I'd say it's impressive in a sarcastic way. But most people in her situation would take longer than she did. So it's still acceptable. Kanzai just started a bit at the situation. She's doing a bit better than I expected. But she won't last much longer, he said as he slowly got up. Quite noble of him to be prepared to fight this beast even with his injuries. But I guess he's not a zodiac just for show. Netero didn't pick out wimps after all. Indeed. She doesn't seem to know how to conserve her stamina properly. I have a lot of work to do in training her, I said while shaking my head. Pito was already panting after a mere 10 minutes of fighting. She kept sending useless attacks that drained her aura towards the beast. In contrast, Kanzai must have been fighting this thing for at least an hour, if not more. Even if he is technically weaker, he is still a lot more skilled than Pito, and it shows. I think it's time we take over. I've somewhat recovered, and she seems to be getting slower too. I guess Pito has had enough. None of the spells her book gave her was good against the land lizard. She's only been getting tossed around like a rag doll. Just sit down already. I said I'd deal with it myself. He looked at me for a bit. Listen, I get that you're strong. But this thing is obviously not made to be fought by us. His answer is logical, but it still makes me roll my eyes a bit. I could see Pito finally decided to use her wings to flee. I obviously give her the wings of Icarus, a relic that I used before finding the Windstrider boots. She flew to my side. The beast slowly turned around and faced the three of us. This is a lot stronger than I thought. Her frustration is nice to see. I would let her fight it a bit more, but I don't wish to be too forceful about it. She's already gotten the message that she's not invincible. I looked to the side, spotting a random tree. I slowly walked towards it as the beast approached us. I gripped it, my gloved fingers digging themselves into the trunk as I pulled the tree out from the roots. I implanted as much on my explosive aura as it could hold, and I chucked it at the land lizard. It opened its mouth to bite into the projectile, a bit of a mistake on its part. As soon as its teeth bit down on the tree, it exploded and burst into flames. Kanzai and Pito were both blown backwards as the explosion also affected a lot of the terrain around us. They didn't get much of a chance to react. I could hear a loud thud as the beast hit the ground and dispersed some of the smoke that had gathered. Then, it slowly got up, as the rest of the smoke also vanished, showing me the extent of the damage it had received. The explosion completely blew off its jaw. It seemed to have burned off its tongue and vaporized parts of the roof of its mouth. It seems like this beast also doesn't want to fight anymore. Should I keep it as a sparring partner for Pito? I think I'll do that. I watched as the beast turned tail and ran deeper into the forest. Kanzai looked a bit shocked. That was. Aren't you going to pursue it? His curiosity seems to have overridden his awe. I'll let it live for now. I want Pito to hunt it down herself after she grows stronger, I said with a smile. Kanzai just sighed a bit and looked at the devastation. The explosion raised quite a bit of the forest. It's already a miracle that the land lizard survived that. Pito looked a bit ashamed at the way things went. To the point where she barely looked me in the eye. Oh well, she will recover from this embarrassment soon. No need to talk about it now. Can you take us to the nearest town or village that has been established? Kanzai finally looked up at me and nodded. The three of us walked in silence after that, each with their own thoughts. _POV narration _ Kanzai's scuffle with the land lizard didn't go unnoticed, as the tremors were felt in the nearest villages. That made all of the zodiacs gather in that place, preparing to fight a threat. They quickly noticed that Kanzai was missing, so they were forced to start making their way towards the tremors. Kanzai might have been a hot-headed individual, but he was still a valuable member of the Hunter Association. The Zodiacs all left their teams behind to protect the city in case something went wrong. They made their way as a group. Leorio remained behind, as he was not a fighter. He stayed to take care of any injuries that might occur and to lead the hunters that protected the city. The Zodiacs all headed in the direction of the fight. After a bit, they ran into Kanzai's group of hunters. They were all panicking and trying to explain what had happened. Eventually, they managed to blurt out the situation. It left Cheetah a bit displeased, to say the least. Kanzai had gone both against her orders and against Ashton's warning. It was frustrating, but she now needed to hurry. She may have been frustrated with Kanzai, but he was still an important member of the expedition. They all hastened their pace, trying their best to reach the site in time. Then, they heard a powerful explosion. It was twice as loud as the previous hits, and the ground only slightly trembled this time. They didn't know what had happened, but they decided to hurry once again. They ran into Ashton, Pito and Kanzai after around 5 minutes of running. The three were just silently walking. Pito and Kanzai were the only ones that looked like they had been in a fight. Cheetah was shocked, then she was pleasantly surprised, both because Kanzai was completely fine mostly and because Ashton was back. It had already been quite a while since he had taken off by himself to the Dark Continent. She was glad to see him just fine. Ashton also noticed them and smiled. _POV Ashton_. Quite the welcoming party. I wasn't expecting this, honestly, I said with an amused smile. I figured they wouldn't ignore the repeated earthquakes from earlier. I wasn't really expecting them to act so quickly though. Well, great to see you. I see that you are looking much younger than before, Cheetah said after some of the awkwardness in the air clear up. Indeed, I see you're still healthy. Badabai also seems to be pleased with my appearance. Yeah. You missed quite a bit of what's been happening, said the cowman. I can't remember his name. Cheetah looked behind me, Pito and Kanzai. She seemed a bit confused. I didn't comment on the age part, as I don't really feel like explaining myself so much. What happened to the beast? She finally decided to ask the obvious. Don't worry too much about it. I'll take care of it eventually, I said while wiping my knuckle on my chest. Ashton scared it away. It was also injured quite heavily. I doubt it will be approaching us anytime soon. Kanzai gave a more concise answer. Cheetah looked a bit confused. Why didn't you kill it? She asked, looking at me with a bit of curiosity. I'll use it to train my student. It's strong enough to serve as a sparring partner, I said while patting Pito's head a few times. The latter didn't seem all that keen right now. I think she's still skulking about being beaten by that lizard. I'm also still wearing my gauntlets, which might have been a bit painful for her, but I'll take them off soon. Especially since even the Zodiacs seem to be eyeing them curiously. I see. Thank you for helping, Kanzai. She bowed a bit to me. Kanzai just looked a bit embarrassed. I think she still has quite a few questions on her mind. But I'm not going to spend the entire day speaking to her in the woods. There are better places to do that. Let's talk more over some tea. A city shouldn't be that far, right? I looked at all of them. The city should only be around 1 hour away at most. Sure. After that, we kept on walking. Kanzai got scolded all the way through. Apparently, not listening to orders is quite a bad thing. But this incident is also not a good sign for Cheetah herself. It means that her position as president isn't yet stable enough for people to listen to her at all times. Netero didn't have that problem. Everyone respected him greatly. But she is still new to this position. And them being forced into this journey might have also been a bit frustrating. Overall, things aren't looking all that peachy for her. Her position as chairman isn't under threat or anything, but any influence she might have is being a bit undermined. The V5 constantly weighing in on the situation isn't helpful at all. They have a habit of ordering others around brazenly. Netero also had that issue, but he had a lot more influence than Cheetah. He wasn't getting pushed around like she is. He did have his moments though, they were just never this early in his career. Cheetah is really unlucky in this aspect. But I guess Beyond is the one that screwed her over in the end. He planned the whole deal with the Kakan Empire, and the association was forced to tag along in order to oversee the situation. All of the Zodiacs look tired, so I guess they aren't having much fun. Maybe that's also because they rushed here. Ashton, how do I get stronger? Pedo finally decided to ask something. The Zodiacs are all busy with their own stuff, the two of us are left to speak to each other. Well, you are talented, you only need more time. Don't worry about yourself too much, but keep this incident in mind. There are many beings in this world that can kill you. She looked down in shame again. It's not a reason to despair. You've only been training for a week or two at most. You have more than enough time to grow. Besides, what I've said also applies to me. Her eyes widened as her head snapped in my direction. What do you mean? You are really strong. Her confusion is what I expected. Even I have to be careful in some situations and against some enemies. Overconfidence can easily kill anyone. My conversation with Pedo continued for a while. I did my best to help her get over this loss, although she was a bit surprised by the fact that anything could put me in danger. We eventually reached the city, well, one of them. I think Cheeto said something about there being 3 cities? Oh well, it's no skyscraper paradise, but it's nice living area. A bit underdeveloped in places, but overall good-looking location. All of us eventually ended up around a table, holding a meeting as Cheeto was still curious about my trip. I took the role of the storyteller and told them some of my findings. I obviously didn't mention anything about gods. I just told them about the calamities. And even about the civilizations that were there before. I left the reasons for their extinctions quite vague. Still, the information seemed to intrigue Cheeto. After which, a monitor turned itself on. It seems we have a rude visitor in this meeting. I could see an old man wearing a suit on the screen. I think he is with the V5? Oh well. I wonder what he wants now. _POV Ashton_. The old man looked directly at me through his monitor. He was wearing a formal suit. He had a bald spot in the middle of his head. It went along nicely with his crooked nose. I think he's been listening into our little conversation. It wouldn't surprise me. These guys are usually control freaks. Cheetah looked angry when seeing his sudden appearance. It seems you've been busy, Ashton, he said with a devious smile. I can already tell that he's planning something moronic. What is the meaning of this? What gives you the right to show up unannounced during our meeting? Cheetah is the president of the Hunter Association. But she can't outright accuse him of listening in on our conversation. She needs to be really careful. Well, she doesn't actually. Netero would have probably just told him to fuck off and unplug the screen. But comparing Cheetah to Netero is getting a bit old. I do not doubt that this comparison will stick to her for a long time, as everyone around her will try to compare this to how things were back then. Now, you people should be silent for now. The Hunter Association's business has nothing to do with this. Oh boy, here it comes. The usual threat that people like him like to throw around. Besides, you wouldn't be anything without the founding and support of the V5. I recommend addressing me with care, Ms. Chairman. His smile says it all really. His arrogance seems to be going through the roof. I think it should be my task to bring it down a bit. Maybe I should remind him who he is speaking to. Cheeto just trembled in frustration. She still doesn't know enough to understand just how little his threat meant. PFFT, I hope you are joking. You little clown, do you think you can act like a king in front of me? Did you forget what our remedy for that attitude used to be? He turned a bit white at my words. When I said I was referring to me and Netero. We had an act for taking out people that irritated us. The V5 used to tread on thin ice. The V5 may have a large sphere of influence. But the Hunter Association is just as, if not more influential. The only difference is that the Hunter Association doesn't have any easy access to nuclear power and bombs. Humph, don't try to intimidate me, Ashton. You are in no position to do so currently. Oh? Are we doing this right now? Pito looked a bit confused at the whole situation. But so did the Zodiacs. They never really knew what my standing with the V5 was. You've gone too far this time. You ignored our orders and entered the Dark Continent. Do you even realize that you might have woken up a calamity while doing so? This old guy really likes to act righteously. Such a high pedestal he's propped himself on. Oh, don't act like you suddenly gained empathy. You're just mad I didn't announce my departure to you and your dogs, I said while waving my hand around a bit. I could see his face turn a bit red, mostly out of anger though. This is no joking matter. Because of your excursion humanity might be in danger. That's why we will need all of the data you've collected to protect ourselves. It's not the time to be greedy. Says the greedy pig. I figured that's what they are after. They should be interested in the specimen of pap and the brine that I have on me. I did mention keeping them to the Zodiacs earlier. I didn't see the need to hide that. The Zodiacs themselves wouldn't ask me for it. Is it just me, or does it smell like hypocrisy in here? Be honest for once in your life, you are just interested in what I have. The V5 doesn't give two shits about humanity, I said while scratching my belly. I've yet to put my gauntlets into the void space, mainly because I forgot about it. I did wear them all the time for the better part of a year. It seems their appearance somewhat interested this old guy too. What is that body armor? You aren't exactly known to wear any. Is it something from the DA? It's none of your business. Just like my research on calamities is none of your business. I recommend the V5 stops bothering me. The old guy looked even madder. Humph. Do you even understand who you're addressing? I think you have become too arrogant. Do you even know what type of power we are capable of wielding? Wow, his bragging is getting boring by now. The Zodiacs also looked annoyed, although Cheeto looks a bit scared. Of course I do, you numbskull. Who do you think built the weapons you are so proud of? Stop with the length measuring contest and stop bothering me, I said dismissively. I am in no way scared of nukes. I left a failsafe in all of the ones that my laboratories and workshops have built. I have a few special triggers. Pressing them will remotely detonate the explosives. I even labeled the triggers for the names of each country. This was actually the method I had thought of when I wanted humanity to go extinct. Before realizing they had little to do with my homeland. Don't think this is the end of our conver. He was going to continue talking, so I just got up and unplugged the monitor. I actually unplugged everything, just in case. Well then, glad that's over, I said while taking my gauntlets off and throwing them in my void space. What? That was horrendous. You've angered the V5, what are you going to do now? Cheetle showing me once again that she's a worrywart. Oh please, this isn't the first time this has happened and it won't be the last. I know you are led to believe that the V5 are a big deal, but they aren't really. I guess I can try to calm her down. What do you mean they aren't a big deal? They are an alliance formed by the 5 strongest countries, and they basically rule the association. I just looked at Cheetle. They don't rule the association, they are basically just shareholders. You have the final say. They may be trying to undermine your influence though. She looks a bit distraught. What am I supposed to do them? You have more experience dealing with them. She finally asks for advice. Well, Netero employed a strategy of just ignoring them most of the time and only listening if the situation profited the association. It's a bit late for you to do that, but it won't hurt to try. She looked a bit flabbergasted. They all looked like that. I guess Netero didn't keep them close when dealing with the governments. You can respond to their calls, just nod your head a few times and say yeah, then completely forget about them and go on with your day. They can't really do anything to you. I slowly started preparing to leave the meeting. 1. I still have to see how Mama's has been doing. The royal family should still be on their black whale. Well, I will be taking my leave. Think about what I told you just now. Pito, let's leave. I didn't need to tell her twice, she was already up and walking behind me. I guess this meeting really bored her greatly. Hey. Thanks again for saving my ass, shouted Kanzai as he stood up a bit. "No problem. Try not to get yourself killed," I said without turning around. "I wonder how far the black whale is from this place. I should be able to reach it quickly by myself." I looked at a map that was put on a post board inside the city square. It showed me the location of the 3 cities. The first city was the closest to the ship, so I'll fly there. It's also a good occasion for Pito to practice flying around. _POV narration _ The situation was extremely messy for the princes and their alliance. 2 of the members didn't feel safe besides their siblings anymore, so they left the alliance and stood out on their own. The perpetrator was still unknown to them. Recently, there was yet another attempt on the life of a prince. Oita and her infant daughter only survived because Kurapika was still protecting them. The chain user had yet to leave the side of the princes. He was tasked to look after them too, so he was still on the ship. Interrogating the people that tried to assassinate Oita didn't uncover anything, so they were left to wonder. The only people left in the alliance were Mama's, her mother and little brother, Haukenberg, Oita, Kacho, and Fugetsu. Camilla had departed to try and look for the killer by herself. Only Haukenberg was suspecting her at this point. Now, of the previous 14 princes, only 8 of them were still alive, 2 of which were too young to help with much. Tuba had gone into hiding as soon as the first assassination occurred. Her whereabouts were currently unknown. Kurapika himself had not been able to look carefully into the identity of the attackers. They were just regular soldiers of the Kakan Empire. But they seemed to be strengthened by some strange nen. Kurapika was unable to discern how it was done. He also informed the other members of the alliance of this matter, which lessened Haukenberg's suspicions of Camilla by quite a bit. He knew that the latter had no way of powering up the soldiers to that extent. This made their investigation halt once more. Kurapika could only sigh in frustration. He wished that Ashton could have been there to help them. He knew that the old hunter would have something up his sleeve to solve the situation. Even if the Kurta clan survivor still didn't know how to approach Ashton. Phaeton had told him something interesting during their fight. He was the one that first ordered the eyes. And he ordered us to get the eyes. Were 2 of the few things Kurapika heard from the short man. At first, he just thought he was trying to distract him. But the information still made him quite reluctant to be near Ashton for a while. At least until he managed to gather his thoughts to confront the old scientist with the information. Ashton, however, departed quite quickly. Kurapika had tried to find him after the last meeting he had with the Zodiacs. But the scientist had already vanished. Mama's had also changed quite a bit during the year that Ashton had escaped. She was still the same kind girl, but there was a cold look in her eyes. It was amplified by the deaths of her siblings. She grew both tired and frustrated as she couldn't think of a killer. But, unlike Kurapika, she didn't wish for Ashton to be there to help them. She was tired of always asking him for help. She was determined to take care of matters in her own way. And, while Ashton was talking to the V5 and the Zodiacs, she was talking to Haukenberg. "Are you sure it is truly her?" she asked with a serious face. Haukenberg just sighed and shook his head. This was a private meeting, it was just the 2 of them present. "I know my sister better than anyone. Camilla would have usually been against the alliance too. I don't know why she agreed to join it," he said as he shook his head. "I see. But she helped us end the war. Why would she betray us afterwards?" She looked at the empty room, her eyes resting on the table. On it was a tea set, one that Ashton had used previously. He had left it behind and Mama's ended up keeping it. She was now looking at it for a bit. Well, Haukenberg also looked at the tea set. Maybe she saw that the war would inevitably end, so she decided to not insist on it. "Like your brother did." Haukenberg referred to how Tserdnik had died because he stood directly in front of their group. Tserdnik had sealed his own fate, and he was taken out by none other than the very person that started the alliance. Ashton, Mama's old bodyguard and likely one of the strongest men alive, at least in Haukenberg's eyes. He could see how his sister would avoid trying to go against such an opponent. "Are you suggesting that her aid to the alliance was just a method to keep Ashton from taking her out?" she asked while staring straight into Haukenberg's eyes. "It's a possibility. It's hard to say what is going through her mind. But she's honestly the only one I think capable of such a thing." He just sighed. "Still doesn't explain how she strengthened those soldiers. I heard they gave even Kurapika some trouble," she said while rubbing her forehead. The parasitic Nen beasts had disappeared with the breaking of the clay pot, and the end of the Succession War. So, even if the ability of her Nen beast was left a mystery, Camilla shouldn't have been able of such a thing, as there was no Nen beast to speak of anymore. "Yes. That part also eludes me. But she is still the only person I know with such ambitions." He took a short pause, sipping from a cup of tea. "She wants to be the ruler, at all costs. I don't know what her plan is. But I think there might have been a few more reasons for her to join the alliance. I can't see her being intimidated into joining." Even though Haukenberg knew Ashton was powerful, he also knew his sister was not the type to fear others, regardless of strength. "Still, she's our best bet. I hope someone will be able to shed some light on the situation," Mama sighed in frustration. "It's not a good thing for us to be so passive. But, with no conclusive evidence, there is nothing we can do," Haukenberg also concluded. The situation was looking bleaker and bleaker. Even if two people now suspected Camilla, they still couldn't confidently say it was her doing. So, all they could do was wait until new information came to be. Fortunately for them, a helping hand would soon arrive on the ship. As Ashton coaxed Pito into entering the void space and started making his way on the ship, things were bound to get more chaotic. _POV Ashton_. This girl. She's so presumptuous, so confident, so devious. Some of those things were quite apparent even while she was part of that silly alliance. Why did I turn a blind eye to her antics in the past? Maybe it was just because she was useful to Mamas and her goals. But now she's nothing but a nuisance. She seems hell-bent on the fact that this society is sick. She considers herself the only person capable of curing it. She seems to be quite charismatic. Her entire speech was an attempt to sway my opinion on her. She likely decided to come out about killing her other siblings as soon as she found out I arrived on the ship. But she must have been considering this for a while now. She has obviously worked on her speech a bit. I don't really like the way she phrased some of her words though. Right at the beginning, "I will spare Mamas if you join me." She thinks she actually has a choice on the matter. Which means that she's confident in escaping from this room with her life. I am quite curious, what exactly is her trump card? "You seem to have wasted enough of my time. Can you die quietly now?" I appeared in front of her and looked her in the eyes while slowly raising my arm. She didn't seem scared whatsoever. Curious, but I can deal with anything she might throw at me. My hand slowly came down towards her. And, to my surprise, she didn't do anything. She just fearlessly stared at me. Even as her head was separated from her body, her eyes still didn't show any fear. Did she come here prepared to die? Is this perhaps a clone of sorts? _POV narration_. Ashton's query was soon answered. The second Camilla's head hit the ground, a large figure appeared behind the old scientist out of thin air, taking the scientist by surprise and enclosing him in its palms. The figure turned out to be Camilla's Hatsu, a huge cat-like Nen beast. Its fur was as black as night, its elongated tail seemed to have a pipette at the end of it. Its palms were attempting to crush Ashton's body while they sucked out his life force. The second someone killed Camilla, this Nen beast would activate, and take out the person or people responsible for her death in that way. However, the beast simply didn't have enough power to crush Ashton's body. His 10 was simply too much. He could have attempted to blow the Nen beast away, but he was unsure how powerful the explosion needed to be to take it out. They were still on a ship after all. So, he tried different methods. He had used his wind Hatsu. The Nen beast seemed unbothered by it. It couldn't feel any pain, and it didn't seem to want to move away. It struggled, but in the end, it managed to suck out enough life force out of him to revive Camilla. Its pipette-shaped tail entered Camilla's body as it started transferring the vitality it had sucked out of Ashton. After successfully healing Camilla, it was dispelled. Ashton landed on the ground. He looked around in confusion for a second. The entire altercation had only lasted for 2 or 3 seconds. Ashton had felt his vitality drained away, but it wasn't a large amount. Merely a drop of what he gained from what remained of the spring of life. The old scientist looked down, where Camilla's corpse was supposed to be, only to see her slowly getting up, completely unscathed. Meanwhile, her head was still resting on the ground. _POV Ashton_. She was definitely beheaded by me. Yet, here she is, with her head on her shoulders. Did she grow a new one? That was her Hatsu then. Unique, it completely took me by surprise. I guess not many would expect something like that to happen. Although I could have been more careful about it. Why you? Why are you alive? She asked in a startled tone. Her cold and calculated facade fell apart quickly enough. It seems the Nen beast was supposed to crush me to death, or at least steal my vitality and leave within an inch of my life. But things didn't really go as she planned. I barely lost any vitality, at least compared to my reserves, and I am completely unharmed. That was certainly interesting. To think post-mortem Nen would be used in such a way. Humanity never ceases to amaze me, I said with a smile, although, I am more talking to myself at this point. I need to figure out a way to combat her Hatsu if I actually want to kill her. So, I'll postpone it. I will murder every single one of your loved ones, and why her threats are annoying. I shut her up by hitting her over the head. She passed out instantly. Still, she went from shocked/scared to confident/threatening almost instantly. It's probably because she thinks I can't kill her. Being unkillable does have that effect on someone. She probably considered herself above everyone else, superior. Now that I think about it, weren't I pretty similar to her? Oh well, I can tell why she's so annoying now. Still, I guess I should put her in my void space for now. I do think Mamas and the rest will be quite pleased with my findings. Suddenly, the guards rushed in. All of them looked shocked at what they were seeing. I immediately turned invisible and left. I really don't feel like having to explain why Camilla's head is on the ground. I could hear a few panicked shouts from the room I just left. They are probably going to be looking for the rest of her body for the time being. I've also likely become a suspect for them. But that's unimportant right now. They won't be able to do much if the other princes vouch for me. It seems I will actually have to visit Mamas directly after all. _POV Ashton_. It's been a while since I've seen the black whale. It's about as boring looking as I remember it. Or I guess plain would be a better way to describe it. I passed through all 3 of the established cities. The population has been spread out quite extensively to cover different zones that collect and trade different resources. The cities have not established a common currency, they are currently trading on a value basis. The more value something has to the colony, the more one needs to give in return. It's an interesting method, but I am unsure of how long they will keep it up. I think they will convert to using a currency soon. After all, rich people will still want to be rich. There's no way they would start haggling with commoners. It's a bit amusing, people left Lake Mobius to run away from their old lives. But the same class divides are present here too. There is little change in the lifestyle of the common man. The only change is that some people will get to eventually run for positions of power after the cities are better established. But elections can be rigged and promises can be broken. So, essentially, the people that embarked here to escape their previous lives will get the privilege of building up a society for the rich people to rule. At least this is the conclusion I've reached from combining what I already knew from the black whale to what I've gathered in my short visit to all of the cities. I convinced Peto to enter the void space before flying towards the black whale because I don't think she'll find the situation all that interesting. There is no reason for me to drag her along. I reached the black whale quickly enough. I landed on top of the first tier, looking down. It's just as I remember it, the rich seem to have remained on the ship for now. So the first tier is quite populated. I didn't see him with the other zodiacs, so he must be still taking care of royalty. But I don't think looking for Oita would be quite appropriate. I don't really know her all that well and my relationship with Kurapika is a bit strained. So I'll just look for Mamas. I'm sure things have somewhat calmed down with her. I entered the first tier from the top. I walked around for a bit. I was preparing to head for the rooms of the princes. But, someone actually stopped me. Hey! Who are you supposed to be? All of the others should be on the continent. A simple guard. He must have been patrolling when he saw me. I guess they already learned all of the people in this tier. He saw me and considered me suspicious. Maybe because I forgot about turning invisible? Maybe because I don't really care enough to do such a thing anymore. I mean, I guess it would have saved me the trouble? But this isn't really an issue. I already have a good enough identity. I am called Ashton. I work as the bodyguard of one of the princes. Princess Mamas Hiwagwaru, to be exact. You can call her to verify my identity, I said as I waved the guard away. I see. Would you come with me for now? We need to make sure you're who you're claiming to be, he said as he motioned for me to follow him. I might as well. Figured announcing my arrival before just showing up in front of Mamas might be a bit more adequate. If things between us were left off on a better note, I might have just shown up at her front door. But that doesn't really seem to be an option now. So, how come I've not seen you around here before? Asked the guard with a bit of curiosity in his voice. That means he believes me. Maybe it was because I was confident while speaking. Not every one of the guards has seen me with Mamas in the past. So it shouldn't be all that widespread. I've been on the continent for a while. I've just returned. In fact, I continued making idle conversation with this guard until we reached a random waiting room. It had a table and 2 chairs in the middle. I walked towards one of them and sat down. Well, I'll go ask around for a bit. It shouldn't take longer than 10 minutes, he said with a smile. Sure thing. I stood in that room for about 6 minutes before someone came in. It wasn't exactly who I was expecting though. _POV narration _ As Ashton stood up, the door opened to reveal a familiar figure. A tall blonde woman dressed in a beautiful blue ball dress. She was none other than Camilla. A person with high ambitions. What a pleasant surprise. Ashton, it's great to see you. You look so much younger. Her smile was large, yet her eyes were cold. Still, her mind was filled with curiosity upon seeing Ashton's newfound youth. Not that she was going to get any answers. Spare me the pleasantries. What do you want? Ashton was not looking to humor her. His cold response and impatient gaze erased the woman's smile in an instant. Well then. I guess there is no reason to hide this from you, she said as she looked Ashton in the eyes, fearlessly. I have started to lessen the competition. If you understand what I mean. Simply put, I want you to help me. In return, I promise not to touch Mamas. She was confident in her bargain. She already realized from her fruitless attempts at bringing Ashton to her side in the past, that the old hunter had a soft spot for her half-sister. So, she decided to exploit that. After all, the worst that could happen in this situation was Ashton killing her. And she was not afraid of that. No, rather, it's exactly what she wanted. So you've already started? Who exactly did you target until now? Asked Ashton while a smile surfaced on his lips. Camilla was a bit taken aback, but she didn't instantly think that the old hunter was going to help her. Well, I wasn't quite the first one to come up with this plan. The first person killed was Tyson. I'm sure she needs no introduction. She started speaking as she sat down in front of Ashton. The ones that killed her were Luzuruz and Zhonglei. You've met the two before? It seems they became quite impatient and decided to better their chances at the crown. She spoke with eloquence. She was quite pleased that Ashton was willing to listen to her in this way. She had expected the old hunter to just kill her outright. After all, He seemed to be that type before. I was the one that took care of the two of them. Since then, the situation has been at a standstill. Everyone has become vigilant." She continued speaking for a while. By the end, she had a pleased smile on her face. Ashton had listened to her without interruption. And that was a good sign. She already had examples of Ashton disagreeing with someone. Benjamin, the first prince, had also tried to bring Ashton and Mamas to his side. And he had failed. She thought she was reading Ashton's mood properly. All until his smile vanished, and she felt a sickening murderous intent coming from him. As a different, sadistic smile resurfaced. His handsome face gave a drastic contrast to the emotions his face was conveying. "Are you done speaking?" He tilted his head, the same smile plastered on his face. Camilla gulped, but it was already too late. She was about to regret showing up at this place. _POV narration_. Mamas was currently sitting in her room, contemplating how to approach the assassinations of her siblings. In the past, she would have been too shaken with grief to even look into their murders, but she had changed quite a bit with Ashton's absence. She was no longer the shy and scared girl she once was. She was a lot calmer under such a stressful situation. Maybe Ashton had a hand in her transformation. Maybe it was just a natural progression, caused by the succession war and its horrible repercussions on the royal family. Regardless, she was not going to run away from her duties as a princess. She was going to find the killer or killers of her siblings and bring them to justice. Halkenberg was currently the only person helping her, as the others were preoccupied with their own safeties. She needed to call another meeting to make arrangements for another attack. So, she did just that. She gathered all of her siblings in her room for a meeting. Well, at least all of the Alliance. Camilla was nowhere to be seen and neither was Tuba. Other than that, everyone that was still alive was present, even Kurapika had tagged along. He was still doing his best in teaching their servants Nen and protecting Oita. "What's the matter, Mamas?" The one to pose this question was none other than Mamas's mother, the Savanti Hawagworu. Savanti was there with Mamas's little brother Mariam Hawagworu. "I called everyone here to discuss the next course of action. It's no secret that the assassinations have taken a toll on all of us." She took a short pause and looked around the room. Most of the people inside were feeling the same as her. Even if the siblings weren't all raised to be close to one another, they were still of the same blood. "I believe the best thing we could do right now is to remain united." Mamas started speaking with eloquence, but not everyone was convinced. "But how do we know we would be safe together?" Kacho was one such person. She didn't consider Mamas to be suspicious, but she had a hard time giving the same trust to everyone present in the room. She also only cared about the safety of her twin sister, Fujitsu, who was far too trusting and naive for her own good, which led to Kacho having to be cautious for both of them. It made her constantly be on edge. Inside this room, she only knew she could trust Oita and Mamas. She didn't know as much about the rest, specifically Halkenberg and Mamas's mother. "I believe everyone in this room is innocent. There is no reason to suspect everyone here, which is why we need to live together from now on." Mamas tried her best to sway Kacho's opinion. Mamas's plan was not a terrible one. Proposing for everyone to move in one place, all of their servants combined defending only one place would be a perfect setup. They could also stop worrying about all of them being systematically picked off and killed anonymously. If something were to happen, the others would notice immediately. "Your plan is not that bad, but there must be some other way to go about things. Some people do like their privacy after all." Mamas's mother was the one to speak up this time. Even in a time as dire as this one, some people could still complain about living conditions and privacy. Sure, Mamas's plan would result in all of them having little privacy, but when the alternative to that was dying, it was a great trade-off. "I believe Mamas's suggestion is the best we have currently. I can't bear to see more of our siblings go." Halkenberg also spoke up. He had always been against the succession war. Seeing his siblings kill each other was a nightmare for him. Oita also seemed to agree with Mamas's plans wholeheartedly. If it is to guarantee the safety of my daughter, I don't care. Her ideology was really simple. She had been of common birth, a minor inconvenience such as lacking privacy was not going to dissuade her at all. Then, I guess we are at an impasse. 3 on 3. No one wants to change their positions, I assume? Mama's was caught in a complicated position. The silence in the room was deafening. She didn't know how to persuade her siblings and mother to accept this proposal. At this point, she wished she was better, but she knew that crying about it wouldn't solve anything. She had learned that the hard way. All until the door was opened widely and a familiar, yet unfamiliar face walked in. "Hello everybody. Have you all missed me? What's with all the doom and gloom?" Everyone looked shocked at the appearance of the man that had just entered. If not for the exact same clothing and familiar voice, none would have recognized him. The last time they had seen Ashton, he was a middle-aged man, now he was a young adult. Still, seeing him had a great calming effect on Kacho. She knew that Ashton would be a great help to all of them. After all, it was no secret that he used to be the backbone of their alliance. Mama's herself was confused. Still, she also found his new appearance great. But, she was also extremely happy to see him again. To the point where she immediately got up from her seat and rushed him. She tackled him with a hug. Ashton was quite shocked at that reaction. It was by far not what he was expecting. Not that he minded, it was a lot better than an awkward hello. _POV Ashton_. "Oh wow, didn't expect this warm a welcome," I said while patting Mama's back. She still clung to me though. It's nice to see she's back on her feet and all of that. She must have been really stressed out though, she seems to almost want to cry for some reason. "Hey Ashton? How come you look so young?" Kurapika also seems confused. After all, he is aware that I am a really old man. "It's a long story, kid. Maybe for another time," I said while waving my hand around for a bit. "So, care to explain the current state of affairs around these parts?" I didn't particularly ask anybody. Mama's was still hugging onto me, but she still started explaining things. "I already have some grasp on what is happening, but I don't really think trusting Camilla is a good idea at all." _POV narration_. Mama's told Ashton quite a different tale compared to what Camilla had told. The princess told him that 3 of their siblings had died quite quickly and that they weren't sure who did it. She did say that they were suspecting Camilla, something that surprised most of the people in the room. One of them even interjected. "Didn't she depart from the alliance to find the murderer by herself?" The naive Fugetsu seemed to finally get the courage to open her mouth. But the rest of the people in the room didn't consider that a good reason to erase the suspicion on Camilla. "That only makes her more suspicious, silly." Kacho was quick to reprimand her twin sister. They knew that such an excuse only made her more suspicious. Camilla had likely thought so as well, and she is an intelligent woman. This is why Haukenberg didn't quite understand her decision to depart from the alliance in such a suspicious manner. It painted a target on her back. That really managed to put him on edge, as he didn't know what to expect from Camilla. But such a move wouldn't be something he expected from her. Now, Haukenberg was silent, contemplating how Ashton could help them better their situation. He had already lost 3 of his siblings. Benjamin and Tserdnik don't count. He didn't want to lose any more of them. Currently, the living princes were like sitting ducks. They also had no choice but to wait for the killer to make a move and hope that they were prepared enough for it. So, he was hoping Ashton would be able to solve the situation without any more casualties. _POV Ashton_. "So that's the story you guys have?" I asked while looking around the room. Most of them just nodded. Others didn't really react. Kurapika was just staring at me intently. The interesting part about what she told me is that the soldiers were strengthened by a strange nen. And I really doubt Camilla has more than that post-mortem Hatsu. So I guess there's only one explanation for that. Only Mama's responded verbally. "Yes, as of now, that's all we have," she said while slowly letting go of Ashton and going back to her seat. She coughed a bit to regain her composure, Her mother just stared at her with a raised eyebrow. This is not really the time for romance tropes and pleasing the in-laws. I see. Have you guys considered the possibility of there being more than one killer? It's the only logical conclusion I can come to. But who exactly would have the ability to strengthen people like that? Are you suggesting that there are two killers? But, that would. Kacho was the one that responded this time. She looked around the room with a bit of fear in her eyes. Don't be too quick to suspect those around you. Think logically for 1 second, who would be a more opportunistic fellow between the living princes? I said, trying to calm the waters a bit. My attempt worked. Kacho seemed to think for a bit before deciding on an answer. Tuba would be one such person. She left the Alliance and went into hiding at around the same time as Camilla. Tuba, huh? That princess that worked as a scientist and had a manly physique. Well, I have good news for you all. First off, I have captured Camilla after she confessed to her crimes. My words seemed to surprise a lot of them. Well, the information she gave me is somewhat different from yours. She told me that Zhonglei and Luzuruz were the ones to start all of this by killing Tyson. Some of the people in the room looked quite displeased by this piece of information. That's preposterous. Luzuruz would have never done something like that. Surprisingly, Halkenberg was the one to intervene. Oh, don't worry, I didn't believe her at all. Especially after hearing some of the things you people have told me about. What they told me reminds me of the Nen beast of one of their siblings. I believe some parts of what I was told. But I think that Luzuruz was in fact, the first victim, I said while walking around a bit. But, the reports showed us that Tyson died first, said Mamas, while putting a hand on her chin. All three of the princes died at the same time. It was reported that they died at the same time. It was said that all three of them were in the same room for some reason. They were presumably just meeting for a random reason. Those reports can easily be faked and their results can be altered. In the end, the only way this could have gone was if he died first, I said while pacing around. I really love solving mysteries. I wasn't expecting something this fun to be waiting for me on this ship. What makes you think that? Asked Halkenberg with a steady tone. Well, if all of them were in one room, who would be the first target for the killer? Luzuruz was the most physically able in that room. So the killer would have obviously gone for him. Tyson was a horny dwarf and Zhonglei was a short stick with dots on his head. Luzuruz was by no means powerful, but he was also the only one of the three with a basic understanding of Nen. Apparently, he had reluctantly learned it after his guards got rejected by Kurapika from becoming hunters and learning it for assassination. And that was before I left for the Dark Continent. He must have improved a bit even with his lack of drive. So, if the killer didn't instantly go for him, it wouldn't have been such a quiet assassination. So you're suggesting that the killer was either Tyson or Zhonglei? Mamas finally caught on, as she stared a bit at me. Well, I'm just suggesting it was Zhonglei. Still is actually. The confusion was apparent. But we saw his body, said Halkenberg. He looked completely confused. I just sighed and started my explanation. Only one of the Nen beasts that you guys obtained seemed to have the ability to strengthen others, and that is Zhonglei's, I said with a smile. Wait a minute. But the Nen beasts from the Succession War have all vanished when you broke the seed urn. The one to speak this time was Mamas's mother. I still haven't learned her name. Indeed, but it may not have gotten rid of the effects of said Nen beasts on others. For example, if Mamas was to control someone right before I broke that urn, the control might have executed Mamas's command before disappearing. My explanation didn't really seem to get through them. Maybe I am not that great at explaining things. People that were already affected by the Nen beasts might have remained affected, I said with a blank face in the most simple of ways. Suddenly, it seemed to click in for all of them at once. They finally started seeing things from my point of view. And just like that, the mystery was solved. Maybe. This is all a theory still. I have no way of knowing some of the things I said. They were just speculations. but I do know a good way of learning the truth. POV narration _ Ashton's plan was quite simple. He was just going to ask Camilla. A simple course of action, but Camilla herself should know better than to not respond to him. All of the princes had seen it with their own eyes, as Ashton infiltrated the mind of the old royal guard captain and learned everything he needed to about the seed urn. They also saw the state said captain was left in after Ashton was done with him. So, he was banking on the idea that Camilla would want her mind to remain intact. Otherwise, he could only hope the other princes didn't mind him possibly disabling their sibling. Well, Camilla was not quite loved, now she was also one of the main suspects for the murders. Well, everyone seemed to have forgotten about her momentarily, as the possibility of there being more than one killer shook them up a bit. Ashton had yet to voice this out, but he was sure that Camilla was working together with Zhonglei. Both in the sense that Camilla was supposed to attract attention, and that she was capable of taking out one or two of the princes by herself. Mamas was currently thinking about the information Ashton had brought to the table. But she was also doing her best to ignore some of the stares her mother was giving her. She had overreacted and jumped Ashton in an instant. It was quite disgraceful of a princess to do such things. Then again, she couldn't really help it. Even if she was much calmer and more collected than Ashton once knew, her affection for him only grew as time passed. Seeing him younger only made her like him more. Although, she definitely wanted to know more about his sudden change in appearance. Ashton was clearly not acting any younger though. But he seemed a tad bit more affectionate. She couldn't quite put her finger on it, but he was more reachable. In the past, he wouldn't have bothered hugging her back in the middle of the meeting like that. He also only hugged her when he was comforting her. He was acting more in line with an old man taking care of a young child than a man looking after a woman. She felt that she had a fair chance to gain his genuine affection now. And that feeling made her giddy. Even when the meeting was as serious as it was, her mind was still distracted by all of these thoughts. Ashton's next actions did manage to break her out of her spell and bring her attention to the present situation quite instantly. I believe asking one of the killers might bring us favorable results. So, should I bring your dear sister Camilla to this place? The question was more of a rhetorical one, as he had already ripped space open, revealing a dark void, out of which he pulled the unconscious Camilla and threw her on the ground with little care. His actions made some of the people witch, but no one complained. They all considered Camilla to be the prime suspect. Even Fugetsu managed to see that with the help of her twin sister. There was also the fact that they all trusted Ashton greatly. He was the sole reason the succession war could end. It wouldn't have made sense for him to try to kill any of them. Camilla was still not responding, as no time had passed for her. She had basically just been knocked unconscious. "Do you believe she might hold the answers we seek?" asked Haukenberg. He looked a bit hesitant about seeing his sister in that state. But he also knew of her true, twisted nature. He knew her cruelty much better than anyone present at that table. "I guess we should wait for the princess to wake up," yawned Ashton while stretching a bit. He hadn't truly gotten a break after arriving on the ship. Not that he was truly tired, he just didn't expect to be spending time in this way. Maybe it was also because he had lost some vitality, a minuscule amount, but still. Couldn't you just wake her up or something? How long has she been out anyway? Kacho just wanted to get her answers faster, she was getting a bit impatient. But then again, the situation didn't really seem to be a great one for any of the princes involved. "Oh, don't worry. She'll wake up in a few minutes anyway," Ashton said while he pulled himself a chair and sat right beside Camilla, waiting for her to wake up. Mamas was transfixed on the situation, so was Kurapika. He didn't really know how to react to all of what was happening. He did hope he would get the chance to actually speak with Ashton this time. He wanted to get things straight, to find out more about the situation directly from him. But those things had to wait for now, as Camilla seemed to be stirring awake already. What? She looked around with a cautious gaze. She instantly realized where she was. There was little panic in her eyes though. It seemed like she had calmed down a bit after the shock Ashton had given her. At least on the outside. In truth, her mind was racing more than ever, trying to think of ways to get out of her current predicament. "Great to see you so energetic. Did you rest well?" asked Ashton with a smile. It made Camilla flinch for a second. "Well, it seems things aren't looking all that well for me." She looked around, the faces of her siblings were all judging her. She wished she could kill them all right in that instant. But she knew that it would be impossible for her to do. "I'll make things simple for you. You can either talk willingly, or I can take that information out of you by force. Your choice. But the second one might kill you." Ashton started beating his chest a bit, much in the same way he did when the mind-crawler came out of his mouth to enter the Royal Guard captain's ear. Camilla gritted her teeth. She looked up at Ashton with absolute hate. Any admiration and desire she might have had for his strength vanished the second it was levied against her. "No need to go that far. I will talk," she said with a sigh. She knew that she truly had no way out of that situation. And she knew that killing Ashton wasn't a feasible strategy at this point. "Good," Ashton said with a smile. It looked warm to some of the people in the room, but Camilla just found it annoying and creepy. Then, Camilla started telling them her story. _POV narration _ As she stood there, kneeling on the ground in front of all of her brothers and sisters, well, half-brothers and half-sisters, but whatever. She could feel herself growing angrier and angrier. Still, she needed to talk, otherwise, Ashton would truly do the same to her as he did to that Royal Guard captain, and she didn't want that. So, Camilla started reiterating what she had told Ashton previously. To which she got quite a few odd looks, and Ashton just glared at her. "You really are still trying to lie to us?" His cold gaze seemed to unnerve Camilla quite a bit. "And no. I'm telling you the truth." Camilla's gaze was unwavering, yet there was a trace of unruliness to it. Resistance was still clear in her eyes. "Kurapika, would you mind telling us whenever she is lying? Just to make sure." Mamas was the one to speak up this time. The Kurta clan survivor just nodded. He walked up in front of Camilla and sat down. He extended his hand forward and his dowsing chain manifested, swinging around slowly as he gazed into Camilla's eyes. The princess just gritted her teeth, a bloodthirsty look in her eyes. She finally realized there was no way for her to talk her way out of the situation. Ashton was also quite irritated. The only reason he hadn't used the mind-crawler on her was that he didn't think the other princes would appreciate it. But he was going to do so if Camilla refused to cooperate. He was not opposed to pissing off some of the princes to get results. "I understand." Camilla gazed at the people in the room with hate. "It's quite simple really. I wasn't planning on actually killing any of our siblings so soon. But someone else approached me first." Her story started smoothly. It was a bit surprising for Haukenberg to hear that she wasn't the first one to come up with the idea to assassinate the others. She was certainly not the type of person that would be opposed to doing that. Zhonglei, that snake, came with the idea. He arranged a meeting between the four of us and told me about his plan to get rid of Tyson and Luzurus beforehand. Ashton gazed at Kurapika. The young hunter just nodded. He confirmed the validity of her story, but Ashton still seemed a bit suspicious of Camilla's words. "So, we did that. But he didn't think it was enough. He also wanted to get rid of me, so things happened, and he died." She was a bit reluctant to give out so much information about her powers. But Ashton didn't need the details to understand what had happened. He could tell that Zhonglei killed her and got his life force drained by her Hatsu. But something still seemed a bit odd. That was it. "I didn't get to do much more before Ashton arrived." Her sentence raised quite a few eyebrows. Kurapika looked the most confused. Everyone looked at him for confirmation. He just nodded his head and slowly got up. "It seems someone else was responsible for the assassination attempt on Oita," he said that as he walked back to her. Ashton then looked at Camilla, who was still hatefully gazing at the people in the room. "Are you sure that the person you killed was Zhonglei?" That question seemed to take most of the people by surprise. But Haukenberg understood where he was coming from. That was what Ashton had been leading up to. Camilla was silent for a bit. It was clear that she herself wasn't quite sure. "It's clear that you were telling the truth. So you certainly killed someone you thought was Zhonglei. But he is almost certainly still alive." Even Camilla looked surprised at this. How exactly could Ashton be so sure about that? His Nen beast could essentially give others abilities, right? So, maybe one of his subordinates gained an ability to disguise himself as others. The other people in the room were also catching up to his logic. An ability that didn't become undone in the moment of death. Ashton started explaining as he pulled Camilla up from her kneeling position and let her sit on a chair. "It's a possibility. I didn't hang around there to check properly. But I guess it would make sense for him to do something like that." Camilla finally seemed to be calming down, as she was also put on the same level as the rest at the table. Being allowed to sit down meant only one thing: your life is no longer in danger, at least momentarily, and that gave Camilla some breathing space. "Yes. But we can't really be sure if the effects of the Nen beasts are still working after they've vanished." Mama's was right, that was yet another assumption that Ashton made. But, thankfully, Camilla had an answer for them. "They do. My servants were still affected even after Ashton broke the seed urn." Her confirmation made Ashton reveal a satisfied smile. "Then, the pieces are coming together quite nicely. It seems our good friend, Zhonglei, had been building an army right under our noses." Ashton's words seemed to make the other princes quite irritated. But they couldn't refute them. They realized that this was the only explanation they had. Does that mean that he was never part of the alliance at all? Did he use it as a cover while building up strength? Oita seemed quite annoyed at the way things were unveiling. Sure, now they had answers, but they weren't exactly pleasing to hear. No need to be so caught up in the details. I believe we should also discuss Camilla's punishment. Ashton's words seemed to put said princess on edge once more. Indeed. She still betrayed all of us, even planning on killing us. Haukenberg was really happy with this idea. His sister was a danger to everyone's safety. Wait. What about all of the information I just gave you? Without it, you wouldn't have gotten anywhere. Camilla quickly tried to bargain. Even if she couldn't die, she could still be incarcerated for the rest of her life, something that she knew would be hard to avoid in such a situation. Oh please, I basically had to threaten the information out of you. You didn't give anything up out of goodwill. Ashton's words were quick to shoot down her pleas and justifications. We can't really kill her. So I suggest just locking her up and keeping a really close eye on her. Ashton's suggestion seemed to be accepted by everyone. They didn't want to have the blood of their sibling on their hands. Yet, they didn't have much choice in this instance. Camilla had no choice but to get dragged off by a few of the servants and closed in one of the rooms. She was to be surveilled by the servants from all of the other princes, hand-picked for their loyalty. The meeting was quickly concluded. Everyone decided it would be a good idea to stick together for now, at least until they found Zhonglei. It was easier to convince everyone now that they had a clear culprit and a suspect. Not knowing the actual force of the enemy was also a factor in their decision to stand by together. Ashton also decided to rest, bringing out a sleeping bag for himself and posting it right at the door to the room where all of the princes were sleeping. He would deal with any misunderstanding he had with the guards in that interrogation room at another time. Too bad his rest was disrupted by someone else. Mamas did want to speak to him in private after all. _POV Ashton_. As I stood there, sat down and leaning on the wall, looking around the hallway, I couldn't help but contemplate how quickly things have changed for me. I never considered myself a righteous person. I never will be one, especially when taking into consideration all of the things I've done. Yet, in the last few years, I've helped more people than I did in all of my years combined. What stirred this type of change in me, I wonder? Well, I guess Netero's efforts to break me out of my shell only paid off after his death. Maybe realizing that I lost my only friends because of the way I am is what caused this change. But I don't really mind. This change is what led me to be where I am. I wouldn't have cared for saving mamas, I wouldn't have cared for helping Kurapika, or for finally putting an end to my disciple. Now, I'm helping the princes once again. Not even expecting much in return. It's quite cathartic, really. I wonder what to do right now. I mean, there are quite a few ways of approaching this current situation. Finding Zhonglei wouldn't be an issue for me, he should still be on the ship somewhere. At least I think so. Chances are, he only left some soldiers behind for them to continue carrying out assassinations. After all, if he remained on the ship, he would have to be extremely careful about his moves. Problem is, if he's not on the ship anymore, then finding him will get a bit complicated. I'd have to check all 3 cities, just to make sure. Even then, the possibility of him being outside of the cities still exists. I stood there and pondered these things. Eventually, Mamas decided to come out of the room and sat down right beside me. I just turned to her and smiled. "Great to see you again, Mamas. It's been a while since we've spoken like this," I said while looking her in the eyes. "I know. I want to apologize. My actions back then were childish. I was throwing tantrums while you were helping all of us." She looked at the ground in shame. "Apology accepted. I'm not going to joke around and say that you didn't bother me even a little bit. But that's fine, a lot has changed it seems. She does seem a bit more mature about things now." Well, mature might be a wrong word, she might just be a bit more accustomed to how things go in the world. Violence and death are just regular occurrences. She was no doubt naive back then, she's changed a bit, but she is still the same, kind and caring, mom is that I know. I don't know if I should find that concerning or to be happy for her. I also want to say, thank you, I don't know what I would have done if you weren't here. She seemed a bit disappointed to be saying that. I guess she wanted to try and solve things by herself. It's understandable considering the way things went between us in the past. No need to act like strangers. If you need help, I'll help you. If I ever happen to need help, I'm sure you'd do the same. My words seemed to calm her, but only momentarily. It seems a strange thought appeared in her mind, one that she finally decided to voice out. "But, do you ever need help? I've never seen you struggle with anything. I don't even know how I'm supposed to be useful to you." Her concern is quite normal. Even if I was to have a genuine issue, there isn't much she could be able to do with her strength. The gorilla Nen beast I gave her is still looking over her, although, she has learned a bit of Nen. Likely from Kurapika. And that's a good enough thing, she's trying her best to grow stronger. The reason, however, is what I find troubling. Usefulness? Do you think I consider you a tool? Friends aren't supposed to be having these thoughts. Maybe I didn't see it this way when I met her, but I don't want her to measure her value in the order of usefulness. That's a downward slippery slope that's quite difficult to get out of. She just stared at me, wide-eyed for a few seconds, then a smile as bright as the sun appeared on her face. Her eyes were almost glistening with tears, and her legs were swaying about joyously. She was about to mutter another thank you. But all of these words of gratitude are getting quite annoying. I just grabbed her and hugged her, it shut her up almost instantly and she just stood there, I could almost feel her melting in my arms. It seems that for all this time of reflection and growth, she still hasn't changed her stance on me. Her affection actually seems stronger than before. "Say, how have you been all this time? Have you been eating well at least? Oh, and, how come you look so young now? What are you? My mother?" This is the first thing she has said after a few minutes of just laying in my embrace. And she's just asking about my journey. I've been well. I looked into quite a few things about the Dark Continent while I was away. As for my youth, this is how I usually look. I just became older back then for a short period of time. I'm not going to go into detail about me going back towards what is essentially a lake of vitality or a puddle, I guess, and gulping up most of it. Did you find what you were looking for? Her innocent question is something I've yet to even find out. To some extent. Yeah. She could probably hear the uncertainty in my voice. But she didn't challenge it. She just nodded and smiled, seemingly happy for me. How were things around here? Our conversation continued for quite a while. I ended up having to wrap her up in my sleeping bag. The two of us drifted off to sleep in the hallway. Well, I didn't really sleep. I need to be a bit vigilant after all. Not that I don't trust the servants of the princes, but I'd much rather be prepared if something is to happen. Mamas, however, slept like a baby, clinging to me as her soft breath seemed to warm up my shoulder. I could get used to this. _POV narration_. While Ashton and Mamas were catching up, a group of soldiers were gathered around a table and planning something nefarious. "Are you sure the leader gave us this command?" asked one of them. "Obviously, the prince wants us to take them out all at once after all." A taller person at that table looked around. There were around 20 soldiers present. They were all strengthened by Zhonglei's Nen beast. Said prince was the one they listened to now. They had no choice but to listen. The power came with such a condition. They were bound, as if by a contract with the devil. Yet, none of them could complain. They had all gained enough power to stand above the ranks of all the rest of the soldiers. They also gained varying abilities and powers, not just an upgrade in Nen quantity and quality. They were all currently strong enough to compare themselves to the old Phantom Troop. Individually, however, they were each only as strong as the weakest member of the troop. Even then, the troop members had some form of powerful or tricky hatsu. These guys just relied on the abilities that Zhonglei's Nen beast bestowed onto them. This small group was all that was left on the ship. Prince Zhonglei had already long since departed from the Black Whale, leaving some of his trusted servants behind to carry out assassinations. He was currently contacting them through carrier birds, as they didn't want their conversations to be tapped. His message was simple. When hearing that all of the princes gathered in one place, he simply wrote, "Kill them all, strike at night." The message was short, but the mission it gave had a difficulty far greater than any other task they had received. The group of 20 soldiers knew that this task would be quite difficult to achieve. All of the princes being together meant that all of their guards were together too. That meant that they were outnumbered by quite a lot. Thankfully for them, their enemies were considerably weaker than them. With one exception, that is, Kurapika had easily taken care of a few of them when they had attacked Oita. They were overconfident and only sent a few people. All of them ended up dying to the Zodiac member. Then they realized that taking down Kurapika wouldn't be that easy. But, they were still confident that they could achieve it. There was 20 of them after all, and only one of him. They didn't even care about the rest of the servants, considering them out of the equation due to their lacking strength. So, they all geared up and prepared for the assassination. That might not be the right term. They were preparing for a massacre. _POV Ashton_. As much as I'm enjoying the moment, I can't help but notice some bloodthirsty making its way towards the hallway. I wouldn't even have noticed this in the past, since it's quite well hidden. But I guess living amongst bloodthirsty beasts gave me a refresher on the sensation. But I didn't want to wake up Mamas. She just managed to doze off and is probably tired. So I'll just use the patented transfer my consciousness to a clone technique, and go to meet our visitors. Now would be a good time to mention the layout of the room and defenses that the servants and princes thought together. All of the princes are currently resting in one large room, with only one entry and no other point of access, no windows, vents. There are no other rooms around it, so the walls are extremely thick. Now, the servants are all posted at the end of the hallway, where a few more rooms are present. That's their living space, as well as the place where they're currently holding Camilla. There are at least 90 servants, 15 for each prince. They are doing shifts of 45, but if an attack was to actually happen, all of the others would be woken up too. Kurapika is currently considered the captain of the royal servants and guards. He is basically in charge of everything regarding defense. The sleeping quarters of the servants are specifically put in that place so that any sound of conflict would be enough to alert them. This defense has just been put in place, and it seems like it's already being tested. I can hear faint sounds of struggle as I approach the end of the hallway. I silently opened the doors to the servants' defensive line only to see chaos everywhere. Around 20 people were attacking the servants. All of them seemed to be decent and power weak compared to me, but that's always an unfair comparison. At least 16 bodies were littering the floor, and they were all belonging to the servants. Each of the 20 attackers seemed to be able to take on more than 5 regular servants. But 7 of them seemed to be stuck dealing with Kurapika. They can't seem to beat him, but they're stalling him to overwhelm him with numbers when the rest are done. The sleeping servants were already awakened and they entered the fray instantly. All types of weapons were used, but the Nen users seemed to be able to shrug off bullets. So the servants that relied on them were currently at a loss on how exactly they could help the situation. I could even see a familiar face. Theta, the woman that had asked me to kill a prince. It seems she is still working as a servant. She was probably recruited by one of the princes after her previous master died. At the moment, it seems that no one has noticed my presence, which I can find quite annoying. So, I gently closed the doors to the hallway. Then I turned around and faced the large room. All of the people inside were locked in battle, but that didn't stop me from raising my hands and clapping my palms once. The sound echoed throughout the room and brought everyone's attention to me. The attackers seemed confused, while the servants seemed relieved. Kurapika used that chance to crush the neck of one of the attackers using his dowsing chain. About time. I wasn't expecting him to complain. But I guess hearing constant thank yous would get tiring. Now, where should I start? I said with a smile as I looked around the room. Maybe helping Theta will come first, since she's someone I know. But then again, what's stopping me from doing all of it at once? I quickly split myself into 10 clones and commanded them to go after the attackers. The brainless clones dashed towards the attackers, using their body's power to its fullest extent. The first attacker to clash with a clone had all of his bones broken in an instant. The next tried to block a clone with his weapon, only for both him and his weapon to be crushed. The rest were a lot more careful, but some still sustained wounds. The clones don't really have a fighting style, after all, they are just all over the place. But that also made them somewhat easy to read, as the attackers managed to get a hang of fighting them quite quickly. Still, that's not really relevant. I made my way towards Theta. She seemed pretty surprised to see me. Hello. It's truly been a while. I'm quite shocked that you are still a servant. I spoke quite slowly. Well, a lot of things changed. Glad to have you on our side though. She muttered as she looked around the room warily. She seems to find these attackers quite threatening. But I don't really think any of these guys are worth my time. One of them, however, seems to have gotten a great idea. If we get rid of him then the clones will disappear, he shouted to the others as he charged towards me. The servants are still taking a break after the attackers were distracted by my appearance, but they still tried to intercept this man. Theta didn't even bother trying, she just sighed and shook her head tiredly. Well, the servants weren't fast enough to intercept him anyway. He quickly thrust his spear towards my heart. An attempt that I find quite laughable, but there is something quite strange about his spear. I quickly grabbed the handle and dragged it to the side, my senses warning me to not allow the steel tip to touch my body. I quickly kicked my leg towards the charging man. It was quick, instinctively even. I didn't even think properly when doing it. My body just did it on its own. My leg went right through his chest. I pulled it back before any blood stained it, but I still made quite a mess on the ground. This is strange. Why did I react like that?